met a gypsy.
So we good, Drones? Sick.
Yeah, I'm really in your ear, and then yeah.
And then that means that you can run the audio, the mic levels a little bit lower, so you don't pick up like the background noise and stuff.
Yeah.
Like Sam being sick.
No, it's good because when I do narrative and I set up like this, I can hear the fridge going on the other side of the house.
Well,
like
it's so quiet here.
Yeah. Sensitive and no, I always wondered that. What's with the headphones?
Yeah,
mate,
people always ask, but yeah, it's just about just monitoring the audio, because a lot of, like, for me, I could do a podcast no problem without the headphones, because I know the distance to be.
You know what you're dealing with post production,
but a lot of people don't, so you got to do it. I think we're ready to rip.
We're on.
Adam Riemann, welcome to Gypsy Tales.
It's cool. It's interesting because I think now more than ever, I don't think you guys have ever been more true to your name, Gypsy Tales.
Yes.
Just roamed around the country and extracting some tales from like-minded gypsies, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess I qualify as one.
100%. I feel like anybody that lives the kind of lifestyle that we have, or just you attach yourself, like I've explained it to people as the dirt bike is like the nucleus of the atom. That's the thing that's at the center, and then there's all these other things that orbit it, and you get these different products or different atoms come off, but there's a dirt bike that's at the center of it. And I feel like if you have a dirt bike at the center of your atom, then you have to have some form of gypsiness about you, because you've got to travel into the bush or into the scrub or across the country to do a race, or around the world to have your career. So it was funny too, like, I've actually never really spoken about the name or anything, but Gypsy Tales, I text my brother in like November 2018, and I said, I think I want to start a podcast, And he's like, oh, what do you reckon you'd call it? And I was like, probably something like Gypsy Tales. And it was just off the cuff, first thing that I said, and it just never changed, obviously.
And generally, if you're going to create something, then it's the first thing that comes to mind, and it might not sound like, well, really, but here you are, however many years later. It's kind of the same.
Yeah,
and
you build into
Motology.
it. Yeah. It becomes its own thing. Yeah. It's like, what's an Oakley?
Yeah,
I don't know what an Oakley is, but I know what Oakley is.
Yeah. You know what they're branded against. No, it's interesting what you're saying about dirt bikes. They sort of allow you to be friends with people that you may not otherwise have anything to do with. It's like, that person's got these views and they do that, and actually they're a bit strange, but they've got dirt bikes, so they're all right.
There's some common thing that you're like, they're in some way we line up on one vertical.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all it takes, and simply because to attach yourself to one and go through the motions and operate it and assume all the risk, you are in the, you've got the sort of stuff that we're into. And it's funny how in being a part of the motorcycling industry, how far that, I feel like, if you're a rider, you're part of a pretty big army. Like, you can't even go out onto the freeway
without seeing a bike on you.
From Friday to Sunday, in Western Australia, I know that much. You can sit out on that freeway or highway and you will see a ute, a trailer load, just van with bikes in it, of just dudes doing exactly what you do. And in one shape or another, whether it's supercross, motocross, enduro, desert racing, we're all playing with the same toy, sort of thing.
You know what's funny in motocross, like, as you're saying that, I'm sort of thinking that if it's got two wheels and a motor, everyone's pretty accepting. Like, if you're into it, like if you're into one thing, even if you're a speedway guy, you can appreciate supercross. if you're a supercross guy, you can appreciate hard enduro. If you're I feel like, because in jiu-jitsu, there's literally just two things. There's gi and no gi. And there's just arguments constantly between what's better, what's more fun. I feel like moto actually doesn't have that. It's like actually quite a accepting overall tribe, isn't it?
It's getting better, I think.
Well, you live in an enduro world more, so you probably feel the prejudice than what I do as like the track rat.
Yeah, I think motocross, supercross has kind of stolen the
limelight.
The limelight. If someone's got nothing to do with dirt bikes or motorcycles, they'll know of a freestyle rider, like a Robbie Madison or a Travis Pastrana, simply anything to do with airtime. But that's not to say that there's, anyone in off-road and desert racing are any less involved in the sport and have any less skill relative to what they're actually doing, you know? And I think guys like Toby Price have just changed that perception.
I totally agree with that.
You don't have to be, and hey, no, not taking anything away from like guys like Shyness and the boys out there just doing the flips and all the rest. But that, when people say dirt bikes now, it's not just crusty demons that comes to mind. Yeah, it's Dakar. It's the other end of the spectrum. Yeah, and there's so much in between when you start looking at it. You've got some rock stars now like Jarvis, a 40-year-old. Literally, he's Husqvarna. Is he a rock star?
Yeah,
Energy?
Rockstar Husky. Yeah,
I didn't mean that.
No pun, but
no pun intended. But
even like Billy Bolt. Billy Bolt, like the young UK rider, like he's doing his enduro vlogs and stuff like that. And now he's getting like this really big following, and he's such a cool, like he makes me want to follow the enduro stuff as well.
Just
like,
his
you
name.
Are right.
Just his
Billy Bolt,
name is wild.
His parents nailed it.
Yeah, totally. And who would have thought that he's every bit of his name when he's on the bike. It's like, whoa, did you see that? That guy's just loose but keeping it together at a professional level.
Well, and then you mix the fact that he's in like the crew with Tommy Searle and Ed Warren. Yeah. And then you've got Ed, who's like kind of like me, like just a decent rider, but a media kind of guy. Yeah. And then, Tommy's
interprets it all for everyone.
Yeah. And he's just kind of there helping them do their thing. And I guess he'd be really producing a lot of what they've got going on. Yeah. And then you've got Tommy, he's one of the greatest European motocross and supercross riders, really. Yeah. And then Billy, who's doing the enduro stuff. So you are right. Actually, it is getting better, isn't it?
Totally. And in that, it's more there's more appeal for the younger generation coming in to not be so railroaded towards the extreme hardcore freestyle. If you want to actually be, if you want the glamour side of it, you can get that in hard enduro now. Yeah. You can be a rock star kind of rider with the trucks and all the gear and all the following, and go out there and just cartwheel over some logs or whatever. Just it's hard. Yeah. And you're going to have to throw everything at it to be that elite level professional. No different to what was only ever perceived as supercross and motocross, because even the late 90s enduro rider was very non-existent. Yeah. They were plumbers during the week and loading their at best race plan, whatever, but two-stroke modded motocross bike to go out there and race through the bush. Now it's full-scale factory enduro teams, big budgets, contracts, and exposure, big-time exposure. I think National Off-Road for the first time this year has finally hit national television in Australia, which is pretty good.
Which is massive, and the motocross has got a pretty solid little bit of coverage going on with SBS as well.
That's sort of always been there. From
it comes in
my
and
memory.
out. Like
yeah.
the enduro stuff, though, has really never been televised, has it?
Yeah, that's right. And then if if you've got what it takes and willing to just bypass the whole lot and go to put yourself on the global stage, there's Dakar. And look what Toby's been there, done that, and is still doing it. Look at Chucky now. He's just all the makings of Australia's best enduro rider. He's won the 6 day. He can do it all. And he's just like, okay, give us a piece of this rally game. And already he's, I think he's steering the ship for gas now,
Yeah, how
Boom.
crazy is that?
Yeah.
That was just yesterday, that guy.
Yeah. So the off-road world, and, ultimately it is responsible for a lot more of the sales of just the retail. It's a bit more of an achievable thing. Not everyone's just going to go out and hit triples on their first experience of a dirt bike, but you can go ride through a bush track and get the base understanding of what off-road motorcycling's about.
Speaking of off-road motorcycling, we are sitting in one of the most ridiculous properties I've ever seen, and it's only in its infancy. It's so funny, like I said to you before, that if you could be dirt, if like Adam Riemann could be 130 acres of land, this is what you would transmorph into, this exact property. I've known you for a long time now, and to see what you've built here, I'm looking at you. You know what I mean? Like this is just so unequivocally Adam Riemann, and it's honestly, this is a special place that you've built here.
Yeah, it's really cool to to hear you say that, and as I mentioned before, you would have a deeper and different appreciation to what this place is than most, because you've sort of seen how I've been able to not so much physically build it on the ground here, but
at the start of the career,
build the, set myself up with the means to even have something like this. It's not luck, as you know, and it's and it's very much a choice to put yourself out in the middle of rural sort of bush landscape and try and build a life from the ground up, which is exactly what I've done, stone by stone, steel frame, and somehow pull it all together as a place of business as well. Because I guess if, somebody says, a lot of people say, dude, you live in the dream, well, anyone who's perceivingly living the dream is grinding,
living the
hard,
grind,
and I say that because it takes every bit of your you got to choose to just go out and chase it and see if you can pull it all together. I've never had the benefit of this place didn't exist. There was nothing else here. And it's kind of strange that if I was to go back 10 years and think, this is the goal, it was just a vague-ish direction, vision. Yeah. I didn't know that I didn't have a plan, right? I'm gonna extract revenue from a digital platform and pretty much produce content from a property out in I always wanted to have land. How I was going to get to that, I had no idea. It was more a case of just, it's cliche, but just sort of believing in you, not so much yourself, but the direction you're going. Yeah. I could have given up on the whole motorcycle media thing multiple times, and just gone, you banging your head against a wall here. It's been fun, had huge opportunities, experiences, ridden, raced all over the world, but didn't make a cent for years. I guess what I did make the call is that while I wasn't investing so much in any sort of business, I'm not really a business-minded person, just something underneath it all said, well, I guess I'm investing in my name, you know, and that kind of started with the ADB thing, the motorcycle journalism with the magazines. I sort of knew that I had a bit of an audience there because they were just reading all the shit that I wrote every month and sort of frothing, and it's like, well, okay, I'll try this now. I won't go to a race with just a camera. I'll get someone else to shoot it and I'll race and I'll write about it that way. Yeah. And sort of develop this frontline sort of from the saddle, you know, moto journalism, I guess. And from that, I knew that I could do stuff and capture stuff, and people they didn't really care what I was doing or where I was going. They just sort of were curious as to what story I'd make of it. Yeah. And I guess that was enough to, you know, once the magazine stuff was getting sort of, I didn't want to be like an editor or get to be a captain of any of those ships. The dirt action.
You didn't want to do like the corporate climb.
No, well, it was never me. I wanted to just be on the bikes, you know. And I sort of loved the photography side of it. And actually, I got to give credit to that whole experience. Is that through being involved in the magazines, I was able to learn all the technology, learn the craft. And then, you know, once I sort of had shuffled around and got to a point where I was just freelancing from one to the other, it's like I sort of need my own thing. I sort of need to be able to just do my own stuff and put it somewhere. And that's where, you know, way back in the day, it was one of those things, like you say, Gypsy Tales. I was sitting in an office in bloody Surrey Hills in Sydney, of all places. Yeah, with the art designer for ADB, Ben Tuffy, good mate. Yeah. And I think we were both out of there at the time. But anyway, we were just brainstorming and just trying to pull moto into some, you know, new, funky digital online thing. And there was already Full Noise. There was already Moto Online. There was already Racerex and all those. And so it was a big call to try and just start something else. Yeah. And then out of the blue, we just Motology. It's a bit.
You are a motologist.
Yeah, totally.
I would give it that to you. I'd say if I was to introduce you to a friend, I'd say, "Hi, this is my friend Adam. He's a motologist." Yeah, like, what's a motologist? Well, you could go to my YouTube channel
and see if it all stacks up. You know, it's like, yeah, probably. We'll get to that later, but it's funny because I sort of, you know, have a curiosity about it, just to go a little deeper and asking the questions and just pulling a bit more of the romance out of motorsport. Yeah. trying to mix art with motorsport. It's not a common thing, and definitely, I guess, you know, I guess that's been the direction. That's what's made all this have any sort of, you know, dare I say, success to this point. But getting it off the ground, it was just cool to know that once I had an idea, you know, do I try and make a website that I can put my own stories on.
Yeah.
It was going nowhere fast, you know, like it just another small and I was had access to all the top off-road riders in Australia, because I was riding with them, racing with them, training with them, living, you know, just so I could get, but it was a very small sort of audience, I guess, and it was already being churned out by the powerhouse websites that already existed. And so it's funny, I thought I got to try something, you know, on top of this. I've got to review bikes, I've got to review gear, I've got to you know, try and add to it, do stuff that I was doing for the magazines, but do it for me, put it in my little corner. And I, you know, was had a know-nothing templated website. I thought, well, I need to start a YouTube channel just as an account to put video somewhere. I didn't know about
so you could put them on your website.
And then link it to that. I didn't know about being any kind of influencer or
like a YouTuber, content creator.
No, I just needed you know, I was very. You
just needed a hosting site.
Yeah, just somewhere to. If I tested a helmet or a bike and I did it my way and I got it, I needed to put it somewhere and then it could play in the website. And that's all it was, right? That's all it started out as, and I remember, you know, I forget what I put in first, but I think after a couple of goes, all I could really come up with was a Riemann 1. Oh, yeah, that's not taken. That name wasn't taken. There's that account, and okay, that's it. It didn't mean anything. It's just now I could put that box in the website and it'd play video. And so off I went trying to work shit out, and I originally just used the free iMovie on your Mac. And the first thing I ever shot was just riding my push bike around Leichhardt and setting the camera up and just cranking past on the pushy and just trying to understand it, you know. And then it just evolved to, well, at the time Wonka and Grabbo were going to race the Baja 1000, and I thought, well, I'll go and try and piece together some kind of little snapshot video of them training, and went and did it, and already had the eye for the action, knew how to do all that, but the quality of video was pretty average. The audio was 10 times worse, but I sourced some music from a guy that I knew at that little studio in Surrey Hills, or an upstart band trying to have a crack. Yeah, use our tunes. And I'd made this little, you know, musical action video of these two boys going for it. And that's how it started, you know. And that was 2009.
Yeah.
And I think one thing led to another. There was opportunities to, you know, still sort of trickling along with the magazine stuff and getting invited to the odd launch and bike tests. I think by the time still quite connected with Husky, and they got us up to their launch, and I thought, all right, well, I'll try and film all this as well. And, you know, you're doing everything by yourself and set up cameras and riding past, and it just kind of trained me and engineered this method of self capture, which was, I guess, in a way ahead of its time. I had no other choice because I couldn't afford to do it any other way.
Yeah, 100%.
I wasn't going to be paying for some cameraman to come out and shoot, and then there was a certain amount of independence to it too. I was sort of like, well, all right, okay, getting the hang of this now, and I know off the start it was probably a real, like, like he's just gone off the rails now. You're no longer attached to the prestige of
magazine,
the big,
yeah.
ADB or Dirt Action, that.
Yeah.
You're just this gone off on this.
He's gone rogue.
And, shooting videos of himself riding a dirt bike, and you kind of, and then it's nothing worthy of any kind of support or advertising or whatever. It's just like, the only thing I had going for me really is that I actually looked, reasonably good on the bike. I could at least mimic what the pros were doing, because I was riding and training with them ongoing anyway.
Yeah.
And, in saying that probably got me across the line a bit too, because where sort of when you do go out on your own like that, and you kind of in some ways become like a competitor inside the industry, the support drops off pretty quick. You sort of you're not so much
in the boys club.
Yeah, and the fact that I could say, right, Grabbo at the time, Desert King, winning off road, I could get these guys come and shoot a video. Yeah, no problem. We'd go and shoot a video early in the piece. Toby, I think one of the first.
Think 2010, I think, was it? When you got that footage, or was it the year before in 2009 when he was pre-running?
No, that was all sort of magazine-based stuff. But when I actually started to get this signature of shooting these videos with pro riders and creating these stories, like, it was, I think it was getting on to 2012, 2013, started to get I was known for doing that, and it was just sort of becoming more and more accepted, and not so much in our Australian audience, but the fact YouTube was global, the view counts just started going up, and the appeal of it was just sort of rising, and it started to become a bit of a marketing platform accidentally.
Yeah.
It just became this marketing platform. It's like, right, how many bikes do you need, and what gear do you want to run, and it just kind of started to take off, and it was like anyone, I was friends with the boys anyway.
Yeah.
So they were sort of probably at the start doing it as a favour, but then it was just like, yeah, man, when are we making a video? Let's do this.
Yeah.
It's funny because, I'm not going to go out. I was just a mid-pack nobody in racing on the East Coast, and against the likes of Toby and Grabbo at the time, and Hollis and all the boys. But when it came to cameras rolling and we needed to make some shit look cool, I could pretty much do everything that they could do and then some.
Yeah.
And they were pretty intimidated at times, because I'd be like, set up these shots, and they'd sort of, they're on their factory bikes, they're on their race bikes that are dressed up. They got an AORC the next weekend, and it's part of their deal to promote that shit and be out at any opportunity to get the validate their sponsorship. Oh yeah, go in one of Riemann's videos, no problem. And I'd have them launching up these rock sections and that, and they sort of didn't, at times were like, I'm not doing it. No, come on, man. And I'd hit something and get away with it, and then they'd have to do it. And we did some cool stuff that became that signature of Motology Films. And again, I'm not trying to be no Chris Hollis, Daniel Milner, Toby Price. I can shoot a video and look like I can ride.
Yeah.
But in terms of going and doing what they do in racing, that was never my thing. But in just that detail of the craft for the shots and looking the part, I knew enough about racing and bike control to pull it off and get this far with it, at least, you know. And now what it's turned into in terms of the audience and what they demand, you've kind of got an idea what I'm talking about there. It's becoming the biggest reason to stay in the game and to evolve and to keep creating these stories and ideas, and it's on the verge of, I guess, being quite a cool business, the YouTube thing. And who would have thought?
Man, the fact that we're both sitting here 10, 11, 12 years on, you know, like when you first started Motology Films, I had MX Daily, like, you know, it was the first blog style thing in Oz, and I was trying to make the cool videos like America of the racer guys, and, you know, to think now, I had no idea, could not have imagined that we'd both be sitting here. Like, it is super cool. Actually, it's funny because, you know, we sort of had this penciled in for a while, like since we said we were doing the Manji trip, but it sort of wasn't until I was here with you today and really seeing what you've built where I was just like, wow, man, like we were two dudes in Fink shooting some stuff for KTM, and I mean, you've been an early adopter of the whole YouTube thing, but yeah, to see what you've created, and it is a super viable business and nearly 600,000 subscribers, and you know, you've built something special. And I think it's funny, man, like at the start of what you did, I personally was looking at what you were doing and just being like, man, it's just weird what he does. Like, he tells his weird stories in his weird way, and I don't mean weird in a negative, just weird in terms of how different it is.
The angle, the perspective,
But it was you. Like, I'm weird. I've got my weird shit, and I'm totally cool with it. And you're weird too. And you never deviated from day one of the weird, unique character that you are. And that got bled into your films. And I think what you said something right when we first started about people kind of following on. I think what it is people like to see a motorcycle through your eyes and the way that you see motorcycles, because you do have a way of extracting like the romance, and you know, you've got such a unique angle, and you've got your own philosophies in your head and reasons to ride, and you know, you've got all of these similar to Rhino, you know, like he's got a lot of his own philosophies, and you kind of live through the bike in a way. It's like it is an expression of who you are, and I think that's what people are so drawn to. And you've never changed that style from day one. All that's happened is more people have caught onto it. And now it's not weird anymore. Like, it's so undeniable that, you know, people, you couldn't say like, oh, it's like this weird kind of thing. It's like, no, that's him. That's what he does. That's his brand. And I think just to never deviate from the original, you know, the vision, the way that you see a bike, and the content you create is purely your vision, the way that you see it. It's pretty incredible what you've done.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, that, and I've known that right from the start that it's trying to cross some kind of artistic, you know, spin into motorsport is a bit of a gamble, you know, and even early in the piece, before I even spoke a word, and when I say spoke a word, before I even put any kind of narrative into the videos I was doing, the first one that actually clocked 1 million hits, riding the high, I pulled in Chris Hollis and Ben Grabham and just some enduro stuff through the bush, and and I used a full piano soundtrack, and just to do it, just like,
just because you liked it.
Yeah, I just like the harmony of it and the two-stroke, and just, I don't know, I just thought I just heard the song and the vision. Sometimes you don't know why. Just you drive in your car, hear a song, vision of rail, and it comes on, and the combo is like, oh, that's gold. And go out, shoot it. Sometimes I'll shoot stuff and I've already got the soundtrack playing. And I just need to go out and grab the shots to fill it in. Try it and put it out there. And I don't need to be the one to say it. Some of the Euros have blown up about it. They froth, I think you can... I'm not alone, like probably in the Australian mindset, the Australian motorsport racer mindset, it's weird.
Yeah.
I think... I guess I've broken a lot of ground in that I have built this motorcycling my own, not a collective, but my own sort of motorcycling empire, this place and business, with really without the need to even roll up to a start line.
Yeah.
And it's something that, while I have been very passionate about racing and always will be, something that's bothered me about the whole racing community and mindset, that who you are as a person and your what you have to offer this world is based purely on how fast you can ride a motorcycle. And I just think that's bullshit. And there's a lot of such passionate and interesting and people with so much to offer that don't quite crack that factory ride, and their whole story just goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
They really have got so much to bring to the sport of motorcycling, but never get that opportunity because they didn't crack that.
They just weren't
marketable position. They just weren't fast enough, and so sorry, mate. Not you, but you. And look, I'm not gonna say any names, but throughout history, there's been the fastest guys on the planet that are also boring as batshit.
Yeah. And
they kind of just drop off as soon as they stop winning.
Yeah.
And it's not that anything against their personality. It's just the nature of this industry, the sport. It's all based, when it's so driven, and motocross and supercross and racing in general is so colourful.
Yeah.
And so many products to be forced upon the consumers that they just make superheroes out of these guys that can cross the finish line first. And it's epic. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, the little underlying stories and I've seen firsthand some pretty solid examples of that. I've spent a bit of time with Toby as the guy in the caravan park that had fuck all.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. That's when I first became friends with him, and I've seen the rise to what he is now. And so that's got nothing to do with, everyone else is riding on that guy's success. He hasn't been made successful by clever marketing. Everyone's just jumping on board the Toby train, and that's great. So I'm not trying to take anything away from the athletes who achieve greatness, but the ones that are second, third, fourth, there's some real colourful individuals, and their stories will never make it to, I guess to I don't want to say a platform that, or a level that you're operating on or I'm operating on, but going back to what you're saying of just staying my course. I don't care what other people are doing. I'm not going to copy what they're doing to try and impress their crowd. Sure, if 51% of my audience said, mate, you're shit, I probably would have backed out of it a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it got to a point with YouTube where, and I say YouTube because that's my biggest thing that I've created and audience, so to speak. But it got to a point, I was pretty sensitive at the start.
It's like, hey, this feedback and the criticism.
Yeah, because mate, as soon as you put yourself online,
it's pretty wild.
You put your voice online, you put your face online, you are just putting yourself out to the world of criticism.
You're basically putting yourself up on it. You're nailing yourself to a cross.
Right, let's have it. What do you got? Yeah. And it comes in all forms of. And some people are really ugly, clever and really nasty, and they're just they monitor a couple of videos and they suss you out a bit and they go, right, boom,
hit him in the
heart.
It
does, and it quietly puts you off your game in your little corner, and if you let it. And when I was younger and getting going, I sort of would think about that shit, and I've blown that. I've had 1 million views and 1,500 positive comments, and then one will get through and it'll be like, oh jeez, I fucked that up, didn't I?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You're never going to please everybody. And I sort of started to, I'm just glad I hardened up to that stuff pretty quick.
Yeah, that can be make or break, huh?
It sort of can if you and it's sort of, it's interesting because the older you get, the less you care about that stuff, but the more aware of the bigger picture you are, and what you sort of need to, who you need to keep on side, but the whole style and signature. Yeah, I used to read all the comments. It's like, shut up. There was some early in the piece when I started putting narrative and telling stories over the video, and you'd get some comments straight out going, just shut up and ride the bike, mate. They loved the action, and they could never really take that away, but the storytelling. And then it's funny because the Aussie accent into Australians is just like, we've all born and raised on Hollywood blockbuster movies as kids through the television.
Yeah.
Our whole impression of what a megastar is as an American.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can be a badass. Like they're just so, right, wow, they blow us away, right? And then there was this era where Aussies, through their doggedness and having a crack, made it into Hollywood. And this cast and crew, a new movie had come out and everything's going wild, and they're in these, scenes and all shit's going on, and then amid all the American banter and the you'd hear this Aussie accent come through, and it'd be like, what? That doesn't sound right. Dude, you're not a Hollywood superstar. Get out of there. You can't. It's that Australian kind of, they love the underdog.
Yeah.
But if you actually crack it and you're there, they sort of want to cut you down.
Yeah. Yeah. That like tall poppy thing.
Yeah, have a go. Do all you can to get there.
Yeah, but once
as soon as you do get there, they're like, oh no, you're just a dumbass like us. You shouldn't be up there.
Yeah.
And I guess in this motorcycling sort of theatrical moto video platform that I've created, and some early days, it was sort of like I couldn't watch any of my videos after I did them and just upload it and go, oh shit, don't want to look, just let it go. And generally those ones where, like what you're talking about, what's he on with this, where's he going with these weird stories, and they proved to get the most views, get the most interaction, and again the Euros loved it, and it just went full circle to the point where if I
don't
they don't get the same reach, the same connection, and I just kind of let the audience, the greater audience, be the guide for the content now, and I sort of try and, you know, you mature and you get. I've never had any training, you know, and there was a point there where people are going, you need to get whoever to narrate your videos, you know, you're shit at it, sort of thing. And it's like, well, I'm not going to pay someone else to tell my story, you know. So I'm doing it. I don't know, unsubscribe or go watch some other video. Nobody's making you watch this shit.
I get all the time. They're like, "Oh, very unprofessional."
Yeah.
And I was like, at what point in this video or like audio that you're listening to has anybody said anything about me being professional? I am just a dude that has a microphone and some cameras, and I put it on the internet. Like there's really nothing past that here. And it's kind of the same thing for you. It's just like, hey, watch it or don't watch it. It's fine either way. And if enough people don't watch it, I won't make any money. I'll have to get a job. The videos will slow down. Job done.
But at the same time, you can't even say that. You're not allowed to comment on, you know, you're putting it out there. It's like they can come back and say, well, if you don't like the comments, stop putting shit on the line for us to abuse, you know, online for us to criticize.
That is true.
So it sort of goes both ways. And mate, if the manufacturers start saying no, then you've got it wrong, you know, like it's because interestingly enough, last year, the lockdown year, the screws got tightened on everything, and you know, I thought, well, this is going to test it. This is going to test what I do,
what I've built,
you know, and there was more to it than that. You know, I sort of had for about 10 years there, you could have been forgiven for thinking I was on the KDM payroll, you know. I've shot that much stuff, and I think I did a KDM 300 EXC video. It's got 25 million views.
Really?
Yeah, and you know, that was the best marketing spend
KTM's
ever done that year.
Yeah.
For how much they contributed, and it's not undermining anything. It's just like,
well, that's smart by them. Like, that's what they want. They want something that blows up.
It's just perpetual.
I
don't even have to touch it, and it's just out there in the ether, churning out 250,000 views a month.
It's insane, isn't it?
Just out there. KDM 300 EXC extreme transition, and 7 minutes long, and so I was on right at the sort of getting into the, you know, the peak of my concept and understanding of
what you were.
And formula for YouTube and whatever, and tying it together with sponsor products and racing, you know, too. I thought I still kind of, as a byproduct to it all, have access to these bikes that feature in the videos, and can also actually fulfill my hobby at the same time. I set up these products to expose and promote in these videos, and then, oh look, we've got a perfectly race ready KDM 300 sitting there, and I'll leave the cameras and I'll go do a race this weekend. You know, and it's all part of it, because you're being that physical representation of yourself out in the field, putting your money where your mouth is. And
I think that's probably one of your greatest strengths. And I think it's funny on our end, where like we've got, you know, we've essentially got a filmer now that is with us, and we're starting to put out these videos constantly, and people it's funny, you get the vibe that people think that's a new thing for us, and it's like, nah, this is like 20 years. Like this is all we do. This is all we've ever done.
It's
but
like,
I've just never put this on the internet because I always respected how hard you worked on filming yourself. I couldn't do it.
You understand.
I could not do it, man. Even now, I've shot every rider that you could think of.
Yeah.
I cannot go and film myself. Like, I just don't have that level of dedication to that craft. And you live it, and you've always been so down to put in that extra yards to film yourself. But I guess the point I'm trying to get at is maybe I think the reason that it shines, or you've done so well, is that you just live it. And I mean, we live it. It's just something that we haven't really been putting out there as much, just because we didn't have the means to do it. I certainly wasn't going to film myself. I just wanted to go and do my ride and leave. But it's real. Like, what you cannot fake what you do, and like your love for the sport. And there's no way someone could watch your channel and just be like, oh, this guy's just doing it for the views, or
Yeah, it's good that, you understand the complete background of it and appreciate it to the same level.
I would watch you at these bike launches filming yourself and just go, fuck all that. Like, I just don't want any part of it.
The launches is just a quick stuff, anything at a motocross track or whatever, and generally I'm working with another rider anyway. But in terms of taking that to the most, how can I say, extreme level, has been the Moto Nomad series,
which is just remarkable. Like, honestly, what you've done and some of the trips that you've been on, and to film yourself through those trips, like, it's gonna. I think too. I was gonna sort of say it before, there's just this point of undeniability where, like, you could go and shoot in your style. People could copy the way that you do the voiceover. People could copy the style of shots and the filming yourself. But fuck me dead, not that many people are willing to go the lengths that you are to get a shot. And it was always like that. Like, there is stories that, like, I'll talk to Wigan and, he'll mention you, or Streeter, and those boys will talk. Fucking Reiman. We were on this one shoot. We'd been given this brand new. It was the only one in Australia. This WR. And then fucking Reiman goes and he rides it through this creek and up this thing. We told him no, and like, it is just in you. Like, what you do is just in you, whether there's a camera there or not.
Yeah, that side of it, definitely. I've got a bit of a reputation.
You do have a reputation.
And sure, if you want to start concerning yourself about bent subframes and like, so be it. But honestly, some of the shots and the footage and the collective films that have gone out, like, for the expense of a bike, the marketing potential and the money, the actual,
well, just the experience,
like put the bike in a crusher and throw it in the bin. It's just
living there.
It's forever, just surpassed pretty much every marketing campaign that you guys have come up with. You know, and I'm not trying to be.
No, it's true. Like, it's just the numbers are there.
The numbers are there, and you don't get that. You can't achieve that unless you go to those lengths to create something different, and it doesn't always go right. It's like say one of the Reedy or whoever, some factory team rider. It's like them having a big off during a race, and they come back and say, "How dare you crash our bike? Like, what are you thinking, dude?"
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just undoing it off the back of the ute and kicking it off on the freeway, watching it cartwheel down the road. Funny, ha ha. Actually got a specific task, and if it pull it off, they're all high-fiving and claiming it as their own. Like, look at this shit, that's our bike, that looks so sick.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't go right,
then it's your fault.
And then it's a subframe and plastics and frame and whatever. They're like, oh, the fucking Riemann, he's just wrecked our bike and whatever. But it's just the nature of the game. But you know, just on that, and getting back to that long-term succession of films and projects with KTM, it just got to a point where they just never said no to any idea I had.
Yeah.
And it just evolved to like, well, Moto Nomad, for example, the YouTube planted the seed. Like, okay, I got this audience that are watching the videos that I create, and they're getting it all for free. And I'm putting in a lot of work, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and they kind of don't really care what I'm doing. They just want to see how I do it, like what you're talking about. And I had this idea once. It sort of evolved out of a bit of a falling out with my old man early days, and long story short, as a means to sort of recuperate lost ground between my father, we had this idea that, well, you know, we should just jump on a plane and go and do a trip together.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with motorcycles. Just catch a plane. It wouldn't matter if the destination was irrelevant. Just spend time together as father and son, and it just procrastinated and like, this year, I got too much on. And it was 2012, and he was sort of on his way to retirement and had all the time in the world to go and do whatever. And I was just really in the grind. And he said, still in that crossover between trying to get this video thing off the ground and still feeding off the journalism freelance scraps from whichever magazine I could still get work from. You know, it was sort of half.
Yeah.
And it was right at the time of Fink, and he goes, oh, so June, let's go to India. I've always wanted to backpack through India. And I'm bang up for all of that, like whatever. But I just thought, June's no good for me. It's Fink. I've got to shoot. I've got to be out there. I've got to, the deal. And then, so I just thought, actually, no, I can't keep putting this off. I'll just try and make, try and make a work out of it. And then, all right, well, maybe we'll get some bikes in India and do a little bit of a ride, and I don't know, and it just evolved, and one thing led to another. And by the time we got to India, I had these two little 150cc trail bikes purchased by a guy over there, and we'd mapped out this monumental 4,500 k journey through the Himalayas. And my old man had ridden a road bike once or twice 30 years prior. He had nothing to do with bikes. It wasn't his thing, but he could physically move one from there to there.
Yeah.
And so we sort of hit the ground running in Delhi, and I'd since acquired some bits and pieces, helmets. He's like, well, we're going to need them. I was like, because when you look at India, everyone's on scooters and bikes. They're not wearing helmets. So I was like, Dad, no, we're
going out there.
Yeah, we're going out there. And fast forward a week or so in, and, we're at 5,500 meters, just leveled on the ground in these mountains of Leh, like the highest altitude city or highest altitude road in the world. Really not getting it wrong sort of thing, and I modified the carbies on these little bikes to just keep going up and up so we could keep the show on the road, and I sort of documented the whole thing. Long story short, I made this cover mount DVD called Himalayan Hero for dirt action, and that sort of got me through.
Yeah, right.
You know, it was like they paid us for it, and it was like, I think that was the most money I'd ever made out of holding a camera.
Yeah.
It took a lot to actually piece it together, but what I'd learned with pissing around with YouTube was the first sort of feature film.
Yeah.
And it had this air of published by another party. It was cover mounted.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. And to this day, some people think it's the best adventure bike over the other ones. Anyway, we did it, ran its course. That was that. But I thought,
how was that with you and your dad? Did it help the relationship?
Well, we it's a
just
tough,
a whole story in itself.
It's a hard one. He got onset of mesothelioma 6 months after we got back. He never felt the same when we got back, and he 6 months after we returned, he just thought, what's going on? He went in and basically had fluid on the lung. Doctor said, you've got mesothelioma, you'll be dead in 18 months.
Really?
Yeah, just next. They've seen it all. They know it. This is what it is. Where have you been? What have you done? What did you do 40 years ago? Help a mate put up an asbestos fence, just cutting it with saws and back then they didn't know what they
didn't know.
And and that I guess going away a bit from our relationship, but what the you think you can correct a lifetime of whatever that relationship may be in a month by doing something epic. And no, there's no correction there's no undoing of lost time. It was a pretty tough ride, not just the ride, but sort of, geez, in India they only have double beds in their hotels.
In the hotels, yeah.
And we're sort of doing everything as a little unit, and it's
Siamese twins almost.
It's like Jesus, and sharing a double with your old man in monsoonal conditions, hot, and just you're hungry, you're tired, you're everything, you're angry, you're altitude sickness, you're emotional, and a month straight together, father-son conflict, like it was. Yeah, it was heavy. It was really heavy, but there are some moments in there that were just like life-changing experiences, and through the Himalayas, you can't not be you're in another planet seemingly. You've never seen, and to just have those little few seconds here and there looking across, and you're with your dad, and all differences aside, just that, we had that,
and you can't take that away ever.
We got that out of it, and there's so much to this story. Like I have no memory of my mum and dad together. They went their separate ways when I was Ruby's age.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so this time,
you
see Ruby and Ayla there.
Yeah,
it's like I'm
just out
of the picture now.
Yeah,
and so I always knew who my dad was. There was no question there, and he'd sort of, he'd started another life. I've got other brothers.
Yeah,
and same with my mum. She met another guy, and we got other brothers and sisters on that side.
Yeah.
But I only actually have one older brother, same mum, same dad.
Yeah.
And we just I guess the long and short of it all would just had stability in two wheels.
Yeah, well,
I was BMXers, you know.
I was just thinking that's probably it's probably a lot of the reason that that Moto Nomad, like that nomadic lifestyle, and you know, relying on yourself essentially.
Yeah.
Kind of, it gives context in a way. Not that you're a super, I guess, open, public, personal kind of guy, but kind of does give a bit of context to the style of what you create, you know. There's a lot of you in that, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it very much so. I guess, motorcycles were really gave me something.
That was your north through everything.
Yeah, through all the shit, and you know, I don't want this whole podcast to go that way, but to pick it up from, you know, a 15-year-old, I just I got a good job as a checkout chick, and here there just resourced what I could to get my first dirt bike, and was then independent at a level that I'd never, you know, it was something that was everything was gonna be fine, you know, because it was just, I could just remove myself from literally remove myself from situations by just hopping on that thing and fucking off. And I sort of did that as a kid, and ended up at friends' houses and just living with friends and this kind of roaming thing. And you don't know any different. You just
when it's that young.
You don't have any money. You just your friends' parents kind of are aware more than what you realise, and just sort of make it like it's normal. You know, had about I think I had a 2-year sleepover at a mate's house, you know, through school and shit, like, but the bikes were I always had this sort of selfishness towards prioritising bikes, because from a young age they became this, you know, didn't matter how bad things were, just as long as there was one there, that I had one, there was a level of independence that came with it, and you could get to where you needed to be. And it's funny because you're right, like the Moto Nomad style, and that first one especially, just going back to the Himalayan trip with the old man, once we finished that film and that ride, that was the defining moment. Was like, right, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to get a mate that can actually ride, and we're going to do it on proper bikes. And I think, it was the next year. It's the following year, or from that point when I got back, I had enough pull in the moto game to sit down with a Jeff Leask and get in touch with the factory and just go, right, I said, I'm going to start from a point, KTM factory, Austria. What's the most significant landmark in a radius from there? And I just was looking at it going, right, pyramids. Okay. I'm going to ride from the KTM factory on 500 EXCs to the pyramids. And I wrote up this proposal, and I put pictures in, and I really made it like, I shoved it in front of Leaski, and I'd done a lot of stuff, and he'd long set me up with bikes, and he was always sort of, you know,
he always had your back.
He did, and one thing I respect about that most is that he also had that whole, he's at the pinnacle of the, you know, not that he thinks that way, but he knows the game thinks that way, that you're nobody unless you're winning races.
Yeah.
So
Because he's been there.
Yeah. So why invest to this level of KTM's resources to just some dude that wants to fuck around and make a video riding bikes around the place?
Yeah.
And he always made it happen. And it wasn't happening. It for a long time, it's just like the factory were just like, what? You what? No, you can't do that. You can't just do that. You can't just ride a bike from one country into the Middle East. There's things, there's all this stuff, and they kind of didn't want to know about it, and it almost didn't happen. And then luckily there was some adventurer some person from the KTM factory visiting Australia that was doing a bit of a ride, and they stopped in at KTM when they were in WA, and Leesky or Greg Chambers, the original marketing manager, Greg, he put it, just coordinate, like sat him down, this is what we're trying to do, what's the story here? And this guy just took one look at it and goes, this is it, you just need to do this, and this. And next thing, they had this work experience dude that had just conveniently come to the factory for work experience, and all they did was just go, right, you need to make this happen. And the one guy that we were dealing with when we were there didn't even work at the factory. He was like the work experience guy, but he did it all. He set up the carnets. He got the rite of passage for 2 500 EXCs to make their way through Europe, cross into Hungary, Bulgaria, Turkey, Egypt. This stack of paperwork, shoved it in the bikes. It's all go.
Wow.
The bikes are here. Fly in. It's on. And then from not happening, it was just all happening. And then 3 weeks out from flying to Austria, and meanwhile, I had this concept. I needed a companion.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I hit it up. I didn't bother with any of the pros.
Pro dudes,
They were my mates anyway, but like
they just got
Grabo,
schedules and
they can't take their time out. I needed someone who could operate at that level but was no longer connected, and I remember out of the blue, Mark Ports, he was a top 10 Aussie off-road guy. He had a good crack. He's raced the 6 days, just a fun dude, and I got along well with him, and he's just messaged me on Facebook out of the blue because he'd been seeing all the YouTube videos.
Yeah, right.
And he just, out of the blue, just a friendly message. He's like, man, the videos you're doing are sick. Love it. If you ever need a property to ride out in Vico, if you ever need some help on a film, whatever, just let me know. And I was like, boom, cop this. And just spelled out this monumental 7-country expedition on 500 EXCs from Austria to Egypt, and careful what you wish for, sort of thing. And
yeah,
he was in, right? We got the bike sorted. 3 weeks out from actually KTM funding it. Well, there wasn't much involved. They just had to supply a couple of bikes, and I think they paid for our flights. That was it.
Yeah.
Done. That's all we needed. Had backpack, camera gear, some stuff. Moto gear. Like, no idea. No adventure gear, nothing. Just Fox helmets, goggles, shift jersey, just some Scott jackets or something. It's no idea, but didn't matter. We needed to represent what my YouTube audience was. There was no way I was going to go down the twin cylinder, Charlie Baum, the long way around road. Like that just wasn't us. And then it all turned to shit in Syria. All the transportation across the Mediterranean was cut off. There's physically no way I could book a ticket or any kind of transport from Turkey across to the Middle East unless we rode around. There's no, I was ignorant, but I knew enough that we couldn't ride through Syria because that was when all the bad shit was going down. And I wasn't going to not go.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, we'll do this. We'll just jump on the plane, go to the factory, we'll get on these bikes and we'll go. We'll ride to the coast of Turkey, the border of Syria, and see what we can pull off, see what we can work out on the ground. Because I tried everything. I tried getting all the ferries had stopped to Cyprus. No, because there was warships in there. It was a hot spot of the planet at the time for
conflict.
Yeah, and and in my ignorance, I was just all about the film, and all I'd done was Google Earth regions that I wanted to ride to film us riding through this epic shit. The adventure would just incidentally write itself around that. And we got there, and there's these two 500 EXCs just sitting there, got big tanks on. They did some oil changes. We fashioned up some racks and stuff, and real proper, not nomads, like more like gypsy, proper thongs and shit just strapped to the outside. Not adventure riders. We were just like these motocross gypsies, more or less. The Moto Nomad, we fit the name as the series went on.
You grew into it.
Yeah, the first one was just like really raw, Moto gypsy is probably more of a fitting term. And we took off. Already had my formula dialed, tripod, GoPro. Bought this shitty Chinese drone, crashed it many times, just trying to, just content every day, capturing what we did, and made it down to Turkey and crossing. Turkey is a transition of where Europe transitions to the Middle East. You've still got all the major road networks of and infrastructure and modern feel of Europe, but then the skin color, the whole food, everything. Turkey is just
culturally it starts to
it's a massive shift, and the religious side of it big time. You really start to get you start to get the call to prayer on the microphones during the day, and all that starts to happen. You're now in
the
Middle Eastern gateway, and
which would, I mean, I've never been to the Middle East, but I assume that you would feel like you're taking a bit of a step back in time, even. Yeah,
when you get to because of the history, it's huge. It's amazing. It's spectacular. It's so far from what we know, because our history in Australia is so short.
It's 200 years,
yeah. But the thing was, and it's one of those points in I felt between those countries that we'd passed. We'd start Austria, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, captured a bit of content, some cool stuff. Coming down through Turkey, got Cappadocia, did all this cool stuff. And it was sort of like, well, I'd given into the fact that, okay, this is probably where it ends. We'll loop around the coast and go up to Greece and maybe do an enduro and try and give it some kind of climax.
Yeah, make something out of it.
Some kind of moto-y climax,
Yeah, complete the arc.
But I thought, just go to the border of Syria. There's this town called Iskenderun, this shipping town, and it was 30 k's from the capital there of Syria that was copping it big time. And the closer we got to this joint, like a few hundred k's out, the traffic just stopped. So we were pointing south on this major highway through the center of Turkey, and we had it to ourselves, and pretty much got to a point where there was no traffic on the road. We were you're going in the wrong direction. It was like nobody's going this way. And then the only sign of activity, you just started to see big kick-ass military choppers flying overhead. And I can sort of liken it for you guys to imagine after you've crossed the Nullarbor, you roll into Bunbury and there's tanks parked on the corners of shopping centres, and this military presence was something we'd never as Aussies experienced and seen firsthand before. And this was nothing. This was just the start of it. It was still fairly, life was as normal once we got to the town itself. It was busy. There's people getting their hair cut and hairdressers, people shopping, but soldiers and tanks and, you know. Oh, does that need a new card?
No, just get a bit dark. Yeah, I'll just change that just before we lose that.
Yeah, this we're basically going in a direction. It's funny, you know. Nobody's telling you can't do it, so you just keep going.
It's like technically you can, right?
Yeah, there was no physical roadblock saying don't come in here.
Yeah.
So we just went, but everybody living there just got well away from that corner of Turkey. We got down there, and for 3 days, one thing led to another, and the you know, nobody's, we're in just the most not isolated, but in terms of well off the tourist map. Nobody has any reason to communicate with Westerners. Aussies speak English. It was very difficult. And we had got a hold from this hotel in Cappadocia where all the balloons, you seen those Cappadocia, the air ballooning in these sandstony spirals. It's a pretty iconic place of Turkey. It's wild. It's fairly heavy with tourism. We explained to this guy in the hotel what we'd planned to do. And so he's just like, he rang ahead, spoke in Turkish to some dude, and just one of those wacky situations where things were not falling into place, but massively fumbling into place. And you're sitting out
like dumb luck,
sitting out the front of these places, waiting for paperwork for hours, not even knowing if they even know what you need yet. And the customs process and just pulling it all together, one thing led to another, and we put our bikes on a freight ship as cargo with trucks and that. So all these trucks that were, because of the conflict in Syria, the trucks that were otherwise delivering goods to Iran couldn't go through there. They just get shot to pieces. So they put them on these cargo ships and ferried them around to Egypt, and then they'd sort of cross over from there. So our bikes got loaded in just like a truck. And we got put on this flight. We didn't even have tickets. We just got...
That would have been so sketchy.
We were just on a list that they called out our names.
Oh.
There was no actual ticket. And the bikes went 3 days before gone. We had to just hang out in this corner city in Turkey for 3 days and wait for this flight. And it happened, you know, like we just got up at 4:30 a.m. from a hotel, got a taxi ride out to this out of the way airport that was just closer to the danger zone, you know, and you're driving through checkpoints and more military, and it was starting to the risk and the danger of what were we really doing was starting to become more obvious, and we no longer had that independence of our own bikes and transport.
Yeah.
Get on this plane and then flew to Alexandria, landed in Egypt, and just walked out of that airport like it was nothing. They didn't check us for anything. We got pulled up at the door, not scanners, nothing, just the door by some dude because it was just such a automated thing that it's the next lot of truck drivers. Hold on. Who are these two bloody white-legged dudes in thongs with fox helmets through their arms, you know? Weird. They pulled us out and you got any? I think he said have you got any guns or bombs? And I looked, are you serious? Do we look like we have that? And at that level they sort of spoke English, and we're put on a bus, and we just thought, this is just too easy. We're on this bus to what was the name of the port? Port said we had to do a 2-hour drive from Alexandria to the port where the bikes were.
Yeah.
And that was when shoot time was being burnt up. We thought it's not going to happen. We were basically just treated like dirt because we couldn't speak the language. We had to stay in this hotel, like multi-level hotel with no one in it. Tourism was gone. It was abandoned, and it was just the most. We were safe to a certain degree, but when you're surrounded by and the actual military presence in Egypt was tenfold higher.
Really?
Yeah, because they had a lot more going on in Cairo. There was a whole ousting of the government. And anyway, long story short, it took us 3 days to get those bikes out of there. And I just thought, we've come this far. We're burnt up quite a few days, but it had happened. We were actually in Egypt, from not even knowing if we could be in that country and just finish the ride going out to Greece or whatever.
Yeah.
We ended up in Egypt, got these bikes out of the shipping customs. It took us 3 days of just catching taxis back and forth to the joint and sitting in the sun, getting no answers and having to pay all this money and not really knowing what was going to happen. And then finally, there they were, just covered in dust, sitting in the corner of this compound with our boots and our gear just taped to it, and we just geared up, and we wanted to be on the road to get into Cairo. It was like 200 k's away. We didn't get out of there till like 6 o'clock, and we just sort of thought we knew enough that we needed to not be on the bikes in the outside of daylight hours. And then we just started legging it, and then it just started. We hit a military checkpoint, and then it was a much more real aggressive situation down there where they just finger on the trigger as you're approaching, and like this was all new to us, and this was so normal for them but new to us, and the only I would have felt in so much more danger if we were in a car.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, because when you're on a bike, they can see your hands.
Yeah.
They're strapped to bars. You're not gonna just all of a sudden pull something on them.
There's no bombs.
You're doing it hard.
Yeah.
They can see that it's like, what do you're not a threat. You're so much less of a threat.
You just look crazy.
You just, well,
you look crazy, not dangerous.
It's funny, like the military in general, once they pull you up and they suss you out, They sort of, I would always just rip the goggles off straight away and just make eye contact with the most senior guy that I could work out was in charge of the whole scenario, And generally they were the most educated and they spoke English. And then the passports had come out. I had a system where I'd get jocks and just toiletries and stuff and put that at the very top. So every time they unpacked my bag and wanted to look in there, I'd just start pulling jocks and toothpaste. Because underneath I had a drone. I had stuff that they'll lock you up. They can lock you up for a lot less.
Really?
There's probably not as bad back then, but given the situation we were going into, as like a perceived, we didn't look like any sort of journalist, but we're carrying gear that could expose what was going on, and they didn't know what story we were spinning. I was just making a dirt bike adventure film, but they didn't. Who's to say I wasn't trying to get in and expose corruption? Who knows? You see some pretty bad stories about it, and it was carrying hard drives of stuff, and it just stuff that really, and of course there was no communication between the checkpoints. So we copped this every time. Every 100 Ks, finger on the trigger, pull up, explain our whole show, go through it again, try and pull it off. We didn't get into Cairo till 11 o'clock that night, and by this stage, you're squinting, and the whole place is dust off the roads, dust off the trucks, the big overpasses, and that there's big potholes that go through to the ground, steel reinforcing, and you're hitting this like hitting a square edge at 100 k an hour on the freeway between trucks in the dark, trying to just move with the traffic, and it's just Ports and I talk about it's not very. I think the GoPros had run out of battery by that stage, and we've got a few little things, but there was that point of desperation to find a safe house. And by safe house, I mean a hotel that was just going to accept us as foreigners. We were in these roads coming into Cairo among the movement of only 3 weeks before they had a kind of like a civil,
like a military coup kind of thing.
And they overruled their own government. There was footage of them pushing police vehicles off the overpasses, and that tension was still there. And we kind of were hidden by the night. We're just on 500 EXCs, just blasting in tandem with all the trucks and the shit, just going into the guts of the aftermath of that war zone to a degree, and pulling in I forget what it was. It was a major hotel chain right next to the pyramids, and lit up by lights, and it's like, dude, there it is. We've got to get there. We've made it to Giza. Giza's like the offset town, and in all that, when you're for an hour there, it was proper A game, at best of your ability as a rider to just be doing that, tired in the dark, in the dust, and we're just in these really, really bad, dangerous roads, and no one, and among hundreds of trucks and cars and shit, and they're all over the place. And we did it. We pulled into this hotel in Giza, and just the relief of a porter.
Yeah.
Just approaching us, not with a gun.
Yeah.
Not to go through our shit, but just to help us into this safe house. But I'll never forget it. We got in there, it must have been close to midnight by that stage, and just offset to the glow of all the hotel and all the car park, the spookiest, grandest silhouette of the Great Pyramid in the dark, but just lit from the city. It was just burnt into my memory, and pretty haunting, because it's something that you'd seen on TV as a kid all your life. It's something that you'd seen in movies, and it just had this, and that after going through that and make that I don't think you'd call it an achievement. Like staying alive isn't as so much an achievement as it is like a, I don't know. It was just a really... It's
just like this hardwired thing in your DNA.
Yeah.
The relief of being alive.
Yeah, of switching off your A game and just being back to okay, we're okay now, and then just this, whoa, look at that. And that's probably one of the if we could have somehow captured that to put in the movie as well, it was pretty powerful. But it's one of the many situations that happened over the month-long film that isn't caught on camera, that people don't see, the grind, the danger, I don't know, the shit the situations you put yourself in to go and try and bring these ideas to life, you know.
I remember someone was telling me, it was either you or Andy Wiggin was telling me, maybe you were telling me that someone like took your bike or one of the bikes and like rode off with it. It's all like, we'll get.
It's all in the.
It's in the film.
In the movie.
Yeah.
And mate, I don't want to make this any kind of shameless plug. This is nothing more,
mate,
than a token.
Everybody needs to.
Than a token of my. Here's the trilogy.
Oh, I cannot
take
wait.
it home. If you've got a DVD player, that's all three.
I'm buying one for this. I think that so for those that are just listening and not watching the video, and for those that can see this particular video, the cover shot of Moto Nomad is Adam on a 500 EXC standing on the pegs doing a wheel stand in front of the pyramid.
The Great Pyramid.
The
big one, yeah.
And it is one of the most fantastic images on a motorcycle that I've ever seen, and it will be very, very hard to replicate.
I don't, given the explanation of how we got to that point, when you get that close to an idea coming to fruition, and just that image, right?
That's worth it.
It is worth it, but it was still, we thought we'd made it. It's like Great Pyramids right there. We're in a hotel. We're alive. Like, yeah, this is after from the whole uncertainty of even being in Egypt, and then that 200k run through the military checkpoints to get there. We thought it's easy street. We get up the next morning, do the breakfast thing, and we were the only Westerners probably in Cairo, Giza at the time. There was
probably that wasn't like a war journalist or something like that.
Yeah, unless there was a war floating around.
And even that would have been rare.
The tourism was decimated, and we saw it firsthand, because
which makes locals desperate
in a way that you couldn't understand unless you put yourself in it, and it was quite scary in its own right. And the only reason that shot happened is because we slipped through the cracks in what was a really volatile and desperate time for the tourism industry that was worth millions, so much for everyone around the world. It's going to the pyramids at some point, to then nobody's coming. We rolled out of that hotel the next morning, and it was only 2k's down the road, if that. We get to the main gate to go and experience the pyramids. They had that whole area, barbed wire reels off, tanks, sandbags, guns, the whole. Any other day there'd be camel carts and hot dogs. Well, I don't know, whatever. All the not hot dogs, but just
as commercial
as it gets, to just
fully gentrified,
facing back at you. You are not coming in here. They were protective of their their national heritage symbol, like just anything they were ready to protect it at all costs. And we were kind of used to that. We were just spewing. It's like, you're kidding me. We're so close but so far. We're not getting in there. And we sort of just rode up and stopped at the base of this tank. And these guys just came out of nowhere and swarmed us. We had about 10 deep around of tour guides.
Oh.
Desperate, like they wanted to be fed. Like
scary desperation.
Yeah, but what they wanted was for us to pay them to be their guide.
Yeah.
We were like the last tourist crumbs for who knows how long. And we rolled up on bikes and we're like, clearly tourists. And yeah, and I could see Ports was he's like, dude, let's get out of here. This is not cool, because they were smothering us. And I saw this older guy, this older Egyptian from like 5 deep back, he's like, he didn't say anything. He just looked up and nodded you just fire the bikes up. You know, the 500s at least are pretty aggressive. It sort of parts the crowd.
Yeah.
And you just rumble through, and they get out the way. And he just said, come, I will take you in, you know. And he kind of was just like, he had a horse and cart ready to go, so he had some pace, and we just broke away into the back slums of around the heading around to the desert part of behind the pyramids, and you know, just the real dirt sandy streets, and it was just like, okay, this guy is full ghetto. He's the street white. He's the elder.
Yeah.
Street. He took us out the back of the compound, and the pyramids are like razor wire fencing, big compound right out into the desert, so people can't. You got to go through their entries, and you got to pay, and it's protected. And there's gun posts on every point. You know, there's sentries around the whole thing, and we're taken up around the outside of this, and he's going further and further, and we passed this rubbish junkyard and all this stuff, and it was just littered with horses. And you just knew they were the horses that would otherwise be pulling these carts, taking tourists all day long. There's no work. They can't feed them. There's the cemetery. Your horse is done. Your business is done. And it was so obvious what the knock-on effect of what was happening. And
did you get time to like process that? Like, did you feel any emotion around that kind of stuff, or are you just so like, we got to get out of here?
Well, there was so much happening. It was so close to the target, and I had it in my head. That shot isn't just a fluke. There's a bit of visualization, and you know, wow, we're here now. It's there. And he's, I don't know, and it's probably for the craft. I was in the magazine game. You're always trying to nail the cover shot.
GTS, get the shot.
You know, like it's just this driving force, and you sort of push the boundaries, and anyway, he takes us right up to the back corner, elevated spot, and it's like, da-da, there's your all 3 pyramids, 5 Ks away. And I just said, dude, we could have ridden here ourselves. I'm not paying you. What have you done? You've just shown us around the back of the fence. I'm not paying you unless we need to get in there. And then the negotiations started, and the only reason I had any kind of, I guess, the only way any of this was going to come about is because they were just simply that desperate for the money. And I didn't want to. It's not so much that I thought I'll use that to my advantage, but at the same time, they were just down our throats. You know, they weren't letting us go without getting something. I said, well, if you get, we'll pay you something, but this is what we expect. Yeah. And the phone calls were being made, and it was heated arguments between them, and then they just did this full security block where they, had to pay a select amount of whoever to bypass the whole process of. They said the beauty of the SLRs is that at that stage you just look like you're taking photos. There's no real
giveaway that it's a film camera.
that you're capturing footage. And like, right, no commercial video. No, they sort of stipulated a few rules, and it's one bike only, one rider, no commercial cameras, and it's not like they're just going to allow some crew to come in and document this thing. We sort of did that, but we were just a dude and a bike and a mate on a camel, and the the concern was we had to leave Mark's bike, his 500.
Yeah,
like we've shoved that in this little fruit and veg market across the road. One of the friends of the security guy, I said, Ports, you chain that sucker up, just this is all unraveling, but we'll just go for it.
And it would have been happening quick.
Yeah, it was, and the miscommunication and the level of understanding of their English, our English, and their and we, one thing leads to another, and Ports rides in on this camel with this other guy. We've shoved all my camera gear under the blanket of the camel. They wanted me to go through security. So Ports has just gone in on the back of this camel. He was just a slip in. I had to go through the scanners in my moto gear, no helmet. They gave my bike to this kid in thongs. And before I could do really sort of process what he actually meant and where he was going to go, this kid's just ridden off. My 500's gone that way. Boom. You just hear that idle cut off as it goes around a building. That's it. That was like, I thought, I didn't want to think the worst, but
you thought
it was like,
worst.
What's going on here? And then the only sort of unfortunate part of that is that going through the scanners and it was coming together and I was inside the compound, is I get through and I look up and there's the Sphinx right there. It's like you could, in what's going on now with international travel and COVID and all that, who knows when the opportunity to see these, landmarks of the world are going to happen again to that level. Anyway, I get through the scanners, I look up and there's the Sphinx. It's like, wow, this could be epic. It should be epic. It is epic. But all I was like, I looked at the guy and I said, where is my bike? And I was sort of really just about, not breaking down a bit, but just like, this isn't right. What have you done? Sort of thing. And the dude just looked at me and he goes, get in the car. Now's not, because they were scamming it. They were scamming it every bit as much as what we were just to make it happen. And he's basically saying, don't screw this up now. Get in the car.
Yeah, just shut up.
Get in the car. And he was angry. And because he was angry, I thought, okay.
Maybe he's got you back a bit.
Yeah. Jumped in this little horse and cart and we ride around the Sphinx. Pull up. And I just never forget the relief of hearing this kid was clipped on. Like he couldn't touch the ground. His legs were dead straight, clipped over the seat. His little sandals were clicking gears coming over the he had another entry in. Just like high-fiving his mates on the wall and the barbed wire, like pumped.
Best day of his life.
Yeah, it just delivers the 5. And there it is. I've got my helmet, got the gear. Ports is on the camel. He's got all the camera gear. They said, you've got 45 minutes, go. And we just went straight up and got poised in front of the Great Pyramid and just did a little shoot. Our own little impromptu video shoot for whatever. And it shouldn't have happened. It happened. The rest is history, as they say.
I don't know how it gets topped.
Yeah, I would never attempt to.
Especially now. Like, it's so... I mean, God, we all just have taken the travel thing for granted. You know, and like the things that you've done travel-wise on a dirt bike, it's like we might not ever live in a landscape where people could ever replicate what you've done.
Yeah, and I'm glad that I didn't hesitate with any of that due to not having the funds, the means, the balls. Like, you
were all in.
Yeah, you got to. You know, and a lot of this stuff, you don't need all the boxes ticked. If you can just tick 2 and just get yourself in, then you can kind of manipulate the situation or go with the flow to at least get a result, you know, and achieve something close to what you set out to do in your mind. And a lot of people don't go ahead with it unless every box is ticked.
I've been that guy in the past.
No, not going to happen.
I've been that guy in the past.
Mate, I'm a 2 out of 10. If I can tick 2 boxes, I'll have a crack.
Yeah, fuck, I need to adopt a bit of that. I let that stuff stop me sometimes. I want to tick all the boxes. But you're right. You're so right. Like, if you can let that stop so much just incredible shit. Yeah. And we could have not boarded that plane because there was no physical means to even get to Egypt. Oh man, the way that you made that trip happen is just, it's borderline psychotic in a way, you know, like there's an obsession. It was very ignorant in terms of the political landscape. I didn't know how bad it was until we got there. That's probably the other thing. Ignorance is bliss too, right? And not through any disrespect to the cultures, or I just wasn't that educated. You know, like you see a bit of what's going on, TV and all the rest, and you kind of get a bit of advice and this and that, but until I think at one point in there, in the film, and we're in Austria, you know, if the gate's open, go in. Don't ask questions. Don't start digging so someone can tell you can't. Just better to ask for forgiveness and permission. Yeah, and you know, you still have your instincts. You still, like, it actually. You'll see it all in the movie if you watch it, but I watched it when it came out, but it's just been so long since I have. You know, and I guess just to elaborate on the whole the property and the YouTube thing, it's really my YouTube platform has been the tool that I've used to market those films to the world. The majority of people would not know about Moto Nomad, the series, if not for having my trailers on the YouTube platform. And you know, as you have your podcasts, I have the digital download sales for Moto Nomad, which thankfully have ticked over daily since I started making them. Not huge money, but another source of revenue to collectively pull together what Motology Films is. Yeah. What was the level of, I guess, just fear when you were doing that? Because I mean, like, it's scary, man, when you're in third world countries like that. I mean, I've been in some kind of heavy situations in different countries, and the commitment level to just not turn around and go, you know what, fuck this. I'm not going through another one of these checkpoints. But it's like, you know, you come this far to come this far, like you know, you gotta. I know what you're saying, and it's difficult, and especially when you're tired, and you gotta be really careful not to be disrespectful, because then it all goes out the window, and And not let the emotion get to you.
Yeah, and you know, you're in their culture and their, you know, you got to abide by their laws, their rules.
And you don't know what those are a lot of the time.
Look, when we left, when we were like, man, this is hardcore. We got the shot. Let's get out of here. We got to get out of Cairo. This is the Badlands, you know. And we just went into the Badlands.
Really?
Yeah, the Sinai. Just Google the Sinai, and this is where all the real bad shit goes down.
Really?
The kidnappings and just just overrunning towns. It's a really high conflict area across that Suez Channel. You know where the ship got blocked?
Yes.
In the Suez Channel.
Yeah.
We crossed that and then went down into the Sinai Peninsula and up into, because we ended up in Petra in Jordan, and that whole ride down there through that region was the most dangerous of the whole trip. And you know, when you stopped and you need police escort through regions, that's when they're like, you shouldn't be here. You can't.
Like you've made a mistake.
Well, it's still, they're not stopping you from, but they're just controlling as how you go about getting from A to B. And it all comes back to that ignorance, and it's not often you know, motorcycles are dangerous, but it's not often that your life depends on a motorcycle. Like if those things broke down, we were, as long as we were moving, we were safe. If we had a puncture on a road, you're forever passing, man, there's like trucks, militia looking trucks with it got more militia the further south we went. In and around Cairo, it's very military, you know, proper uniforms, tanks, all the specs, like you can tell. But the further south we went towards the Sinai and the roadblocks and that, we're at this one, and there's this, you know, this Datsun painted black house paint with a gun turret and this massive the machine gun belts and the bullets. And this is just like backyard sort of spec bolted
just guerrilla warfare.
And well, just cobbled together version of their military, because they're over, there's so much happening, they need everyone on, all hands on deck. But when you've got, I remember just looking at this kid, he must have been 15. He's got his arm up over this gun that would cut a car in half, you know, and he's just bored. He's like spewing him out in the sun. He's on that post, and there's tanks further off in the distance, sandbags and all that, and he's just flicking through his Insta, you know, like, and you ride away, and you potentially the decision of that young mind, your life is in the hands of. You kind of get, to answer your question about the fear of it all, you start to get a bit desensitized to it, because you're surrounded by it. Like if you look on the news and you see the warfare and stuff going on and things getting blown up and just the presence of that much artillery, it's scary. Like, oh, that's the last place you'd ever want to be. But when you're in it and you're surrounded by it and it's happening, and you're alive and you're reactive, you kind of start to focus and just, if nothing's threatening you immediately, you sort of get a bit, how can I say, not desensitized,
just like numb to it.
Not even numb, just like your brain starts to elevate what is danger.
Yeah.
You know, and so, okay, this is cool. We need to go from there to there. Don't piss that guy off. there's 15 soldiers there. There's a tank there. There's just be seen, be cool. Don't just, you sort of fit in. It's a weird thing to say, but you start to fit in. And look, we're lucky. We didn't end up in any kind of crossfire or conflict to that level, but it was happening all around us, and you know, we took a bit of a punt and did some cross-country sections through the desert and just popped out on roads on the other sides of checkpoints, and could have gone bad but didn't. The biggest reality check that we got, and I have to laugh about it because in between on the way to the Aqaba, well, we caught the ferry up to Aqaba to Jordan. I forget the name of the place where we left, the port. Anyway, it was just not far from Mount Sinai. We went through this checkpoint, and there's the militia vehicles and all the rest, and the same thing again. This happened 20 times. And just across was this full brand new 10 metre high razor wire compound, and you know, like satellite dishes, and it was modern. I was like, whoa, what's that joint? And I just saw this full, it had to be American. You can kind of pick an American commando from a mile off. And here we are, just out on the road, handing our passports to these militia spec Egyptian soldiers, and there's this American commando inside this compound. He was ready, looking back out at us, and I just sort of went, you know, just, you're not Egyptian. He just kind of didn't really do anything, but I thought, oh well, yeah, we're from Australia. We're just riding our bikes through, and you're in there, and you're armed to the hilt and behind that fence. It kind of suggested that, yeah, this we're not in the right place. Yeah, you know. And again, something that Ports and I, at the end of it, when we got through it all, and we're on that plane out of there, had the hard drives full. You know, you're traveling around Australia doing your podcasts, and you're filling hard drives. You know, all that got confiscated, or you got washed down or whatever. You know, like, we made it back to Cairo, and we were just like, that kind of just happened. It was amazing, but we both agreed that we were probably never going to return to that. It was one country that we didn't feel we had to ever return to again. It was too much. We'd seen a good side of it, a really, really bad side of it, and just opened our eyes to how bad it. Well, to put it blunt, how good we've got it in Australia. You know, like, if we're our little lockdown checkpoints, and the police have got the masks on, and you know, they're not pointing guns at you. They're not, you know, like, everybody needs to settle down and just chill a bit when you get frustrated because you're a bit late, and well, I can't go here, I can't do that. I just have, I guess, at least been educated to that level. I'm not that educated on what's really going on, but I've experienced how the people that just want to live a normal life, they're not out. Nobody, you know, people think, oh, the Middle East and Islam and all that, they just want to kill everyone. It's not like that at all. They're peaceful in their life and their world, you know. we ended up in places in all of those badlands, in the Sinai especially, where these people had nothing, but they gave us everything at night. They just put our bikes under blankets so they couldn't be seen, invited us in,
Yeah, really.
Fed us.
Really? So you would just kind of get in with like locals and just...
Yeah, this one particular night in Mount Sinai, like right in the heart of it, just these Bedouins. It's Bedouin people. They're just like a, desert sort of people, and they're sort of still revolving around that tourist element, but not, they're not like going to Bali and just getting heckled to death. They're not like that at all. It was just a little insight into, bad people are bad. There's 99% of the people in the world are good people. It's just the bad people that are bad.
And it would have been so weird to have like so much danger, so much uncertainty, and then I'm sure there would have been moments where you would have just been captivated by like the beauty of it. Yeah. Which would have been the most strange juxtaposition.
Totally. And you're not in those ideal set up at a bar, beers with the boys, like check this out. You're just in the dirt, You're sweaty, you're in your riding gear, you're tired, but you're just conditioned to it. You're just there. You're there with nothing more, nothing less than the villagers that are that live it every day, and you're just sort of seeing it as it's a different level of appreciation when it's not a tourism driven experience. It's just I guess, a lot of the most epic places that I've seen and found just through going by feel have been well off the tourist map. It's just the way the sun is setting at the time, the weather, the conditions, the light, the where you are, the perspective, the smell, that cultural cast over everything. Up in, like in the Middle Eastern culture is fascinating, man. Like it's a touchy subject for obvious reasons, but when you're there and you're in it, and
what are the elements that really fascinate you about it?
Oh, just the mystique of it all, the way they dress and the food and the architecture and just this. It's true to that sort of Moto Nomad. Trying to pull the bike thing out of it all. It's just so far and foreign, and sure, the fact that so many people believe in this one thing and they're so moved by it, and the routines that they have.
They build their life around it.
And it's I'm fascinated by culture, not just Middle Eastern. Islam. There's there's a whole nother podcast in talking about Moto Nomad too. Kazakhstan to Mongolia via Russia. We did 9,000 Ks.
Wow.
A bit more set up, a bit more organised. I made rally screens. And then part 3, a bit of an ode to Dakar. Thought, let's go and try and retrace some of the tracks, the 2014 Dakar, and 7,000 Ks through Bolivia, Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, sort of perfected my craft a bit more by part 3.
Get better at it every
if
time.
You get round to...
I'm going to binge that shit.
Yeah, well, part 3 for me is the number one, and for obvious reasons, what we just spoke about will never be
That's
repeated.
Just such a crazy experience.
Should never be... Would never attempt to try and do something like that again. Just the rawness of it, the Moto Gypsy element, the unorganised part of it. But part 3, third one in, Chris Hollis, Mark Portbury, a couple of good mates, South America. Wow. I can kind of, I don't want to gloat or you know, talk up what it is, but I'm just sort of glad that I've gone and when you talk about uniqueness and sticking to your way of going about things, I'm glad that, you know, Moto Nomad is something that didn't exist in this game, and from what I can see has not been. It's not that someone needs to go out and better it or create something, try and copy. I don't know. It's just its own thing.
Yeah.
That has been done, and if I don't do any more, it doesn't matter, you know. It was just a stage in my life where I just really wanted to pull off some crazy ideas, utilizing the resources that I had, and you know, thrown in with a few skills and just like, let's go. All of which couldn't, for many elements, so many things could have stopped those films from happening, you know. But you know, when you've got these powerful intentions and it's come from a young age where I've just always, you know, not come from money or had the, you know, the support. What do you want to do? I've not had a business idea. I've just like I'm a 2 boxes out of 10 ticker. It's all I've ever been. So that's enough. I'll just pull it off. Just make it happen somehow. Just, you know, and that's the result of that mentality. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of it.
Oh, you should.
Never really tried to boast about anything. It's weird because with being a sponsor, when I say sponsored, I'm no factory pro or anything, but I have sponsors to help fund these film projects. Yeah, and I give them exposure to a level that is worthy of sponsorship.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And I have to, you know, you got to put yourself out there and be this influencer. I sort of should try and get better at that. I don't know. Maybe I don't have to. Maybe I should just stick to doing what I do. Yeah, maybe you can help me understand my YouTube channel a bit better, Jay. So
yeah, I think it's all a process. Hey, I'm just gonna piss real quick.
Yeah.
I got my next line of questioning.
Yeah, good. Let's have a quick intermission. I should probably check on the kids.
You've got a crazy context that most people don't have about the podcast. If we keep this bit in the podcast, we're eating Tim Tams. We just had a piss break. Shit. It's still on.
I hope I haven't been too far away from the...
No, you've been good.
Because sometimes I realise I've been talking and it sounds a bit...
No, you've been good. And I'll level it all out anyway. We got 1 hour and 10 minutes left. Hour of power. I hope that fucking counts. Can you sit back for us?
Should drop back into focus. What's your concern?
That it wasn't in focus. I mean,
I might have moved the chair a bit. I can see a bit of red fuzz. Yo.
I think what was throwing me off is that the wall on the same focal plane. I'm like, oh, the wall's awfully focused.
Because
and then it goes back.
It's that point.
Yeah, I was like, is that too much?
No, that's it.
Are
we back on?
No, we've been on the whole time, really. I guess my follow up from that. I mean, you should be awfully proud of yourself. Like you've achieved just a weird thing. Like you're like a weird kind of author type dude that writes a classic novel. That's not a writer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Writing. I've been, how can I say, accused of writing some cool shit here and there, but it's just like homework to me. I just, really? I was never going to make it in any type of online newsy, like, forget, copy and paste, just nah. But, at a creative level, if I get going on something, I can, really my vocabulary is not that great. I'm not that educated. I've got an intuition and a bit of an engineering sort of crafty mind, but
you're compelled in the same way that like I'm compelled, and it's weird. I've only been thinking about it recently because actually this shout out to Kasarina. She's a cool chick from Adelaide, and she come up at the other day at Dust Hustle, and she said, she's like, oh, I've been listening to you for 4 years. And I was like, well, I've only been doing the podcast too. And then she was like, no, it was like 2018. I was like, nah, all right, I think maybe it started in 2019. And she was like, I'm telling you, it was 2018. And I hadn't thought about it, dude. I had not even thought about how long I'd been doing it.
Wow.
And it's weird, man. Like, even today, you get up today, just compelled. I'm compelled to do it at this point. It's a weird thing. It's sort of, I don't know. There's something that, I'm asking because I don't know what it is. Maybe you've thought about it, but I'm compelled to do this, and I've been compelled to make shit since you met me, and since I first bought a camera in like 2008. And there is this weird compulsion, but it's sort of like we spoke about today. I mean, I don't in any way, and I mean, I'm sure people would say this, and it's disingenuous, but like, I don't have any compulsion to be famous. I don't really care to be recognized. I'm not, they're not any kind of metrics that I'm chasing. 100%. But I'm compelled for some reason to do this and I can't explain it. And I wonder, because you're compelled, like you are compelled to do these things that don't make a lot of sense if you wrote it out on paper, but there is something there's a wind at your back. And I'd wondered if you'd ever thought about it.
No, totally. Like, it's the getting recognized and pulled up in airports is a bit of an unfortunate byproduct. I'm not that into that, based on, I don't want to I probably come across as rude, but it's not that. I'm actually just shy.
Yeah.
I'm not really that much to that level. I don't mind parties and socializing and whatever, but never really been that comfortable with being in the public eye, and it's something that it's a funny little irony. When I got straight into graphic design out of high school, so I did high school, got through to year 12, and smart enough to do that, but I wasn't going to do uni. I thought, keep the creative side going, straight into graphic design, because you get a selection process. You make made the first wave. That was something. I was pretty good at art. I actually used to paint, and I guess it's pretty obvious that this is my creative outlet at the moment. But anyway, got straight into graphic design out of school and was in those units and elements that make up that, that course at TAFE. Is TAFE still a thing now?
I think so.
Yeah, ask your grommet down there.
Ronan. Is TAFE still real? Is TAFE still real?
Technical and further education, right? TAFE. Got into that, and then the graphic design was broken down into elements: typography, art history, and some design elements and these things. Anyway, for 6 months I did it, and I could do all of the actual hands-on creative stuff easy. Couldn't get my head around why the hell we had to do art history as part of it, and I just didn't want to know about it. I thought it was, well, look in this, I'm going this way. What? Graphic design? We're making cool shit. What does it matter about learning about the famous artists? And no disrespect, but I just couldn't get my head around it. But the thing that just pretty much made me turn my back on the whole thing was I had to do I had to present
like a speaking thing.
To 7 other people in my class. Just tore me up and just turned my guts for weeks. Couldn't do it. Couldn't bring myself to do it. I was like, there's just this smoking chick in the class as well, and I don't know. I just wasn't that confident. Just did not have the confidence. Yeah. No, can't do this. Deferred.
Because of that?
Yeah, that was me. Wow. If I just couldn't do that, I'm out of here. 2 weeks I deferred, so I could pick it up again. I just signed the thing where you defer. Right, couldn't do it. Out of there. I'd finished high school. I was with a new core of people. Was going that way. It's just it's not really me. What? Can't do it. Deferred. Within 2 weeks, I was swinging off the back of a garbage truck at 4 a.m, hanging onto a cold steel pole, going through the back streets, sorting through people's rubbish, making money. Making pretty good money. Bought another dirt bike. There'd been a bit of a gap by then. I was 17, going on 18. And I guess the point I'm getting to with all this is that I couldn't bring myself to speak in front of these 6-7 other people. So I'm swinging off the back of a garbage truck, making money, bought a dirt bike. My jobs evolved to various other things, and by this stage had sort of met some guys out bush where I'd ride with my mates. They were into racing, and they said, you got to come and race, and got to a race and messed around and sort of started to work my way through the ranks, and then started standing on podiums, club level, but had to get up, and there I was up in front of people and having to speak in front of a crowd. And I had no money, never had money. Bikes were shit. I had all hand-me-down, hard sun-bleached tyres from my mates and just whatever I could cobble together, and I'd go and race. And it's sort of this forced realisation that, shit, I got on the podium, I want to race. And that means...
You got to talk. And what started to come with that was support. Oh, here's when you get some stuff, and it just was this, this environmental kind of situation where if I put myself there, the money that I didn't have, I could didn't matter. I could start to get things, and fast forward a few years and at WA, I ended up winning the West Australian State Enduro Championship, and kind of Leesky picked us up, and where I had kind of gone through the dealership level and trashed my fair share of bikes, not through
just kicking them off the back of the ute on the freeway, that kind of thing I was talking about, but just riding the wheels off them, like one engine for riding everything. The summer quick start motocross in Wanneroo to all the Pony Express cross country series, our whole enduro, like I was just riding, I was chasing every event that ever was happening. That's all you did. I lived for it as a racer. Didn't know media or photography, anything. It was just pure riding the wheels off bikes,
whatever you could get,
be a better racer.
Yeah.
I thought, I love this. I'm just this is the extent of me as a competitor, sort of thing. And I started to gain a bit of confidence that I never had through what the situations that the bikes put me in.
Yeah.
It's I'll probably still never, going back to what you're saying, like I just don't like don't want the I mean, we're not famous, we're not celebrity.
No, it's in such like a microcosm. It's like
it is.
It's on a huge scale, but it's still so niche.
Yeah, but if you wind the clock back, I mean, I think with my YouTube channel and whatever, there's the films, the Motology film, that symbol is kind of its own entity.
Yeah.
Irrespective of me. I'm not in every single movie. People enjoy when they see the logo, they're like, oh, you got to watch this.
Yeah.
Oh, the guy that does it, pretty cool, watch the guy, and that's good. The real core followers that have been following what I do for right from the magazine days, they know every detail.
Yeah.
They quote me on stuff I could be in Greece or wherever, and I'll just get some complete random dude just cut through with something that they know that I know, and it's like, wow, you have watched every video,
It is special. Like I definitely don't want to sound like, and I know you don't want to either, that it's like it's this hassle that you've got to deal with when people recognize you and stuff. But I think I know what I'm trying to say is that that's not the intention.
No,
because that's where it can get ugly. Is when like you actively seek and want that, and I mean that did a number on me for the first couple of years of that. I was real insecure about the fact that people wanted, or that I was insecure that people would potentially think that's what I wanted.
Yeah,
but it's funny. No. It's funny you say you couldn't talk in front of 7 people. Like I am on the complete opposite end of that spectrum. And for whatever reason, I could be sitting in front of a million.
You don't give a shit.
It doesn't faze me. And I don't understand it at all. Like
it's good.
But I couldn't explain why. And it's just in your exact case, it's just as easy to be the exact opposite of that. You know what I mean? And that's another thing that you kind of can't explain.
No, and I've since had to make it count at weddings and bloody hell, funerals and
I will say that I can't do the funeral thing. I've done 2 eulogies and been a complete fucking write-off at both of them. So that's actually the one thing I can't do.
I don't know, you sort of pick up a few things and have a bit of a way of going about it, and it all just comes back to the trophy presentation thing. It's only That was the crucible for you. Yeah, I put myself in that situation because of and again, I'm only talking club, state,
but it's relative.
And then it just spiraled from there with the magazine stuff, the media. I did cinema release for Moto Nomad. That was cool. Transmoto Wigan called us up after I launched it, and he's like, "Dude, you didn't do a cinema release for Moto Nomad. How about it?" like, well, yeah, wow, cool. KTM, I guess, may not have dropped the ball there, but Wiggins just like, yep. And we did it in Sydney, and it was one of those things where you sort of can hide behind your product a bit.
Yeah.
You can just
let it do the talking.
Well, it's happening. There it is. They're all there to see, not you, but a movie that you did. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. Nobody likes the sound of their own voice. So to be a part of these films in a launch sense, a preview sense, I sort of hired up the bats. Strange, but you kind of just, okay, it's happening, and you know, you sort of forget about it once people are in it.
Yeah,
they're with you.
Yeah,
so it doesn't so much matter. And that whole what you coming back to the want or the need or the
so what is the what is the compulsion with all of those caveats that point against doing it? Like, there is something that compels you to create that content, and in the same way that I couldn't tell you why I do this. Like, I love doing it. I'm compelled to do it.
If you just get so much enjoyment out of digging a hole, 10 people walk past and go, dude, that's the best hole I've ever seen dug. You should do that. You should keep digging. Yeah, I love this. Okay, if you say so, I'll keep digging. It's the same with pulling stories out of people, making movies. Like I enjoy the
process,
the capture.
Yeah,
pulling off the move on the bike is one thing. Timing it with getting it caught cinematically on camera, piecing together a collage of imagery that you can present as a music video, as a story, as a whatever.
And it can outlive you too. That's been one of the weird realizations of this. I was like, fuck, this will be somewhere when I'm dead.
Yeah. It's totally like this house,
that stone wall will be somewhere. We'll be here when we're dead.
Yeah, I've never been one to just when my old man passed away. He was just he'd done a lot of cool stuff. He was a builder. I'm not a builder. This is the one and only house I've ever built, but he was a builder and did a lot of stuff and had a lot of cool friends and he meant a lot. He meant quite a lot to a lot of people and he never had this grand drive to make a name for himself. He was a kick-ass rugby player, hard as nails, could fight, like clear a pub sort of crazy fight dude. Not that I ever saw, but I knew that fire was in him.
And you hear the stories.
And just had this potential of being a pretty epic human being. And when he passed away, he was just in a interim beach house in Scarborough that he had with his wife, my stepmom, and no real landmark of representation of him as a person. He just died in this place that he was just briefly in to spend his final days, and I think it's been sold and it's got he's built other houses and has his craft spread around, but it's somebody else's that somebody else owns. And I felt sort of, he got cut short early, so don't get me wrong. It's not like he knew. He got cut off. He's only 65. But I don't know, I've never really spoken about it, but it's sort of, you know, this person that I am, the shit that I come up with and what I do will, you know, I guess this property and this house will, for whatever it becomes, will just represent that dude, Adam Riemann, that just ticked 2 out of 10 boxes and had a crack, you know, like, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
you know, this paddock that I showed you was just a paddock. From the ground up, I've struggled harder than I've filmed a lot of it too.
Yeah, right.
I've filmed
a lot of building
80%. I've filmed this whole build of the wall, the structure. I roofed this thing myself. Like, yeah, that's probably all I need to say about it, but it may form part of a different doco when I choose to really go weird.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. What you're saying is weird.
Yeah.
But what I'm very much tethered to this motorsport, motorcycling audience, and you know, I've got sponsors to represent. You can't go too weird. When I say weird, what we were talking about as weird.
Yeah.
I'd rather call it creative.
Yeah.
And open it up to a bigger audience, open something up to a bigger audience without losing my moto audience. I think I might have gained enough hold or respect or captivation of the motorcycling crew to, in the next couple of years, bring some other aspects of colour and creation and life into my films.
Yeah.
Get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do.
I got to make moto videos now because that's what's paying for all of this. Like I said, if I stop pushing, I'll roll downhill. The grind is
well and
as
truly
hard as it's ever been. It's not getting any easier, and I can't stop. You know.
How do you become okay with that? Because I feel like, and Sammy is definitely a partner in this. My brother is a partner in this. We've got a few of us that, especially like last year when the whole COVID thing started, and you know, we had sponsors pull out, and it would look like we just went from literally just made zero money in a day. Like everyone was like, "Cool, we're out." Yeah, you know. And then I think everyone come back. I think it was just like a panic thing, but it definitely clicked a switch in me. Yeah. And it was sort of some of the stuff we were talking about before we started doing the podcast, but it was just like, I am going to grind like fuck. Yeah. And I'm just going to be okay with it. And I'm just going to take on board, like, because it's like, to be successful, there's like requirements. You can definitely get lucky. Like you can definitely get lucky. But to build success, it's going to require X effort, and it's like some people are okay with it and some people aren't. So it's like, you know, you're wildly successful from the outside in, like to have a, you know, an audience the way that you've built it, and the platform and the films that you've done, and there's just achievement after achievement after achievement, and it's like high level achievement, like not very easily replicated. But you're still in the fucking grind. Like you said, if you take, you know, and even like for us, man, like I haven't been able to post a podcast this week. Like we've been too busy, and it's just like,
hey, mate, you've been road tripping across Australia.
But still, I mean, you know, the work, it did nothing, went out. And it's like, you feel that you go down. It's like, how do you, or what's the acceptance that you come to just be okay with the fact that, all right, my foot has to stay, well, my wrist has to stay wrapped on the throttle, and I'm just in it.
It's obvious state the obvious surroundings. I got 2 little girls. I've come this far with it.
Yeah.
You know, do I? The only thing I'm actually qualified to do is I'm basically a heavy duty diesel fitter.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, over 20 years ago, made the decision not to spend my days underneath a hot, oily truck out on a mine. I thought I'll just take off around Australia and have I started with a monthly column. That was my sort of, you know, I don't know if you remember Way Out West, that column in the magazine I used to write.
Yeah, I never read ADB. I was the full stroke moto kid.
Yes, right. Yeah. Like I think I said earlier that there's been multiple occasions where I've could have just thrown my hands in the air and gone, well, that was fun. Should probably
now grow up.
But you know, when I moved to Sydney, I was 29, right? And all I had at that point was a HZ Statesman, some riding gear, didn't even own a motorbike. I was racing here, had support through KTM, had bikes, and honestly I think by the time I bought my plane ticket, cobbled a few things together, I was swagging it on a mate's floor in Mosman, Sydney, and I had probably not even $500 in my account. That's it. I was 29. So I'd long missed the boat of any kind of conventional investment businessy, you know. I've never been good at any of that. It's always just been a vision of an idea, like a creative drive, and the only incentive to ever have been doing that is just the responses from other people. I don't know. It's just a nice. I don't. It's like I need the, you know, like I. It's not like I was bullied at school or that sort of thing. Needing this acceptance of others. It's different. It's like when you can make something
that you feel like you're adding value.
Yeah, they're like, man, that looks really good. It comes from the art side of it, you know. Like I was pretty good at it at school, drawing, painting, and thought that's the way I had to go, you know, like I was going to be an artist.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much me. They're not like saying, you know, you're really cool.
It's that your art's
It's what
really
you've
cool.
made is really cool.
Yeah.
And they can take that over there and enjoy it. I don't even have to be there. And the concept of that is like I'm a private person. You don't really need to give me the praise, but if you enjoy that, that's cool.
Yeah.
Build something, that's wicked. Make a video, take a photo. I don't know. To this level, one of the biggest, and whether or not I actually take note of it, but subconsciously, I read some comments, some of the videos and all the rest. It's like people just say, just don't ever stop doing what you're doing. And I think, well, yeah, I don't plan to. I've somehow managed to make a living out of it. It would be a waste to,
yeah,
you know, I could if I went to the mines, all this would stop, and the digital fire would burn out, and I could probably go and make a lot of money on the mines and just. But the momentum that I've created, it's like, I sort of got to feed the beast.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm looking forward to being able to do it better.
Yeah.
When this is finished.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm only giving as much as I can to it, and my frequency of content, videos, just what I do, is quite low compared to what you're saying. But I'm becoming more aware. My missus she's on to me. She's like, you got to invest more time in your YouTube. And if I've got her support.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's huge, like she couldn't give a shit about the bikes. She's happy for me. Like, I got Ayla a little 50 and she's riding her on a farm, and she's been on the back of the bike once in the 8 years we've been together. She's brought her to a Transmoto 12-hour first moto date. It was the dustiest event. She's a city chick. It's just like, wow, well, that was different. This is what you do.
Yeah. This doesn't look fun to me.
But she's from that events side of things where she understands the need to present and feed an audience and just, again, come this far. If I want to take it to the next, you got to get this much better, you got to grind that much harder. It's just what it takes. I'm 46 now, got a bit more of a, perspective on how I can achieve things, and I just really enjoy doing it. I guess that's it. Full stop.
Yeah.
If I'm bored of it or I don't like it, it'll show in the craft. Can you imagine doing a podcast with whoever and you just couldn't be fucked talking to them?
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or how would it wouldn't go down to would it?
No,
Yeah.
you're right. And it's funny. Like, there's definitely it's so natural to face resistance in things in life. And then this is just one of those things where I just don't really seem to face much resistance for whatever reason. No. And I'm sure it's probably the same for you when it comes to grinding out here. There just isn't that same resistance that, like, for me to get up in the morning and fucking shower to do something I didn't want to do, I'd probably just stay in bed and waste away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and that's, the whole getting out of bed thing, it happens. It's automatic if you're building your own life, and every move you make is to feed your existence. Like I've done the whole pouring all your energy and skills and craft into fueling someone else's business for the gravel that they'll pay you at the end. That can't last too long. I don't know. I don't know how you could be satisfied with that. You've got to use those opportunities to mastermind your next move.
Yeah.
But I got death sick, like proper death sick in hospital. Well, in Vietnam, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I got the sack. It was when I got the sack from ADB, when it all came to a head and you're done. And you sort of, when you're outcast by the industry you're so passionate about, you sort of like, it was just a turn of events and like I get along well with Wigan now, and at a social level always did, but we bashed heads pretty hard working, and not because I was trying to compete against his ways. I still think he's got, I think he's one of the best, if not the best editors in the dirt bike game, because I've seen his processes and his extraction, and at a time there when I was at ADB, it was something pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But we bashed heads hard. It was going that way, and I got made redundant. Like that proper scenario where they walk you out of the building.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That all happened. And mate, this is the week before I was flying out to race Erzberg for and I was riding with Husky, and I had all my bikes and everything loaded in the ADB van. They pulled the rug, and it didn't. I just went ahead with what I had to do. I had to get the bike to an AORC that I raced in Queensland. Yeah, Paul Feeney.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we do know Paul Feeney. Legend of the game.
He's
Sammy's neighbour.
he pretty much funded my second crack at Erzberg.
Yeah.
I went in 07 originally, and then anyway, we had a round of the AORC to get through, and then Hollis and I were flying straight out to Erzberg. So the gun was loaded. I was going north, and got the sack, and it all just smoothed over. But people wanted it to make it into more than it was. It's like, he's taken off in the van and blah blah.
Oh God!
It was. I just organised with another staff member. I was like, I got to get to this point. I'll offload all the shit. Can you come and get it from here? I got to go. It was the most unceremonious ending of a.
Did you ever hear? I had literally the exact same thing happen at a stroke with Uriv.
No.
I had a bike in the back of a van because he didn't pay me X amount of money. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, that's seems about the same money as this here bike's worth. So I'm taking this, and you let me know if you want to figure it out. I literally just drove from Melbourne to Queensland with a bike in the back of my car and just said...
Yeah, like you'd shot through.
Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out.
Held a CRF 450 hostage.
I was kind of... like that, except it was just a 200k stretch. I needed to get the bike. Anyway,
how funny is that?
I did it all, right? We went, raced the AORC, came back, had this mega party at Feeney's, and then Hollis and I flew out to Erzberg.
Was this when Feeney had Husky?
Yeah, this is when he had Husky. 08. This is when they were starting to be good. They were pretty good. Yeah. And we met up with AJ Roberts, and Ports was there, and at the time Hollis and AJ Roberts were 1-2 in the AORC. I knew things were just stewing and conspiring and were ugly for me back in Australia, because I actually finished top 50 that year, and I beat AJ and Hollis. And, I'm not claiming any kind of heroism out of that feat, but Erzberg is a beast of a thing. It's not about how fast you are. It's attrition. And it's how hard you can grind, sort of thing. Anyway, when I got back to Oz, there was no mention that I was even there in any. I was just kind of blacklisted, and it was a real... that for me, that was the point that my whole trip to the east and being a part of the media game was over.
Yeah, I'd
moved to the east. I'd given it a crack, and I'd gotten the sack from the Bible. And you do. No one's touching you after that. Couldn't get any work with anyone.
Isn't it crazy how nothing ADB is now though? In the grand landscape compared to what it was, like just the media landscape's changed.
Yeah,
so
it has.
much.
No, in that regard, totally. It's still
it's still tangible and real. Yeah,
and you respect it for what it always has been.
But you couldn't get blacklisted by ADB now and have it be in any way, shape or form an issue to your career.
No, just be water under the...
no one would care.
And I, you know,
You copped it in an era where that actually
Yeah,
mattered.
it was a issue with me and a person, not me and a corporation sort of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a really dark sort of time to be outcast by the industry, you know, what I felt. Most people are like, whatever, move on. But you really take it personally, and I just thought, this is me. I'm done. I'm out. I'm just gonna. I think I got a few grand redundancy or whatever, and just no bikes. Just jumped on a plane to Vietnam and just literally fell off the map, you know, for about 3 weeks. And it was a good, just a, you know, backpacking rogue experience. Just took my camera, just did proper tourist. And the last 3 days in Hanoi, I don't know if I got poisoned or if I ate the wrong thing, but it took every ounce of, and luckily I was tanned by that stage, because underneath the tan I was just a dead ghost. And I just sat it out in this hotel, dying for about 2 days, losing weight, and just I didn't even have the mental capacity to book an earlier or any of that. I just hibernated in this fetal position in a hotel, sweating for 2 days, and then summoned all my energy to get to the airport. Made it to Darwin for the first part of the flight. Zombied my way through the process. Eventually got back to Sydney and somehow got home to where I was renting, and I don't know how it came about, but my roommate must have caught sight of me or something, I don't know, and she somehow got the number to a chick I was seeing at the time and said, something's wrong, you better get, and she took me to the emergency at RPA, and I just passed out in the car park, and they pulled me in and they thought I had friggin' leukemia, and it was all getting serious, and got on a drip, and yeah, I've never been so sick in my life to this day. I was, and ended up in this hospital bed just on my own, because my whole family and everyone that sort of is over here, my only people I know in Sydney at the time were all the boys that I raced with, and they're spread out up and down the east coast. So I was just in this dungeon in Leichhardt in the back streets of Sydney, you know, editing. So I was just, just a pin drop in the city. And when you become incapacitated and you're in a hospital and no one knows, you're just the only connection to my existence was this chick that I was seeing at the time. And it's funny how things work, because it was somehow about 2 days in, I think, it got round to a friend down the road, a neighbour, one thing led to another, and about 3 days after being in hospital, I think I finally got a call from my mum. Like it was just a real darkest time of my life, you know, and what came of it was I was laying in there just going, and this is off the back of that whole ADB, Erzberg, return to Australia, get out, we don't want you, in my head, that's what it was, to being in hospital. And I just thought, then this bullshit, I didn't know, I didn't have a plan. I just said to myself, no one's ever going to be in control of my game ever again. This is not how it's going to be for me. I've vowed never to work for anyone else ever again. And I guess for the best part of it, I've done exactly that.
Yeah.
Sure, I still contract work out as Motology Films, but the whole employee,
You're steering the ship.
yeah, has never gone back, never, and it, I don't know. People talk about those moments where you just like, nah, pretty rock bottom as it was, and then within a couple of months, registered motology.cc. I bought the domain, and
now we're sitting.
Here we are.
And now we're sitting in a hand-built house.
Yeah. On
one of the most epic farms that I've ever been to, with some incredible tracks. Like, this is a dream come true, and it's off the back of just years and years and years of work. Like, it's really, really, really cool.
It's just good to get your response to that. As I said before, you got a fair idea of what it takes to be involved in a digital business, predominantly digital business, and one that's based on the motorcycle industry. It's not easy making money out of bikes, is it?
No.
But
and it's just not easy. The bigger thing than that is, like, it can be done to make a living out of bikes, but to make a living in the way that you've made a living off intense authenticity. Like, I would say that would be, if someone asked me to describe your brand, it would be like intense authenticity. That Adam Reiman dude will only ever do an Adam Reiman thing. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of stubbornness in that, and just, I've kind of taken I don't know if I have taken a bit of direction on things here and there, but you sort of...
Oh, I'm sure you would have to a point, but...
and inspiration, don't get me wrong, there's inspiration, but in terms of, I've always do things the hard way a lot. But this as well, it's everything that goes with it. It's
it's the life for your kids now, being able to live off the grid and give your kids such a good life, and it's definitely deeper than just the work side of it too,
Yeah, it is, and I'm doing everything I can to make it work to provide this. I think I mentioned before, the whole moto stuff is secondary to, at the moment, it's the focus. It has to be but in terms of the lifestyle, it's work. It's a secondary thing. The passion's still there, don't get me wrong, but the house and the farm and the animals and the kids and this is my home, and very grateful that I've been able to pull it all into the one paddock, so to speak. But I don't take it for granted. I'm sort of trying to stay as sharp as I can. I'm balancing as well. I push my body pretty hard building this, maintaining the moto level, the filming, you name it. I'm trying to working out how to get a bit of balance and dial back and start to enjoy this and enjoy the bikes. Actually, no media, and this is the first time. I just sort of dabbled with it last year, but I still used it as content. I went racing, did some cross countries with the CR, all based around content. This year, for the first time in a long time, I've freed myself up to go and race. Not even bring a GoPro.
That would feel pretty liberating.
It's good.
Yeah.
Just talking the shit with the boys and turning the throttle and fueling that thing up and lining up and having a crack and just not being anyone else but the rider, And that's where it all started. I was never a media guy, a racer that went into the media game and
Yeah.
created something out of it.
Well, we've done 3 hours, mate.
Shit.
And
I hope you got some usable, conversation in there.
Nah, I honestly have just loved it so much. And yeah, you're a guy that I've always looked at as, and just had a huge level of respect for what you've done. And it's inspiring to see like the levels that can go to in terms of, the platform and yeah, but honestly being here, like I want to come back here again.
Yeah, man.
Like I really want to come back here again and just spend a bit of time. Like you get on this property and it's, I was saying before, it's almost like it's not like a different vibration. It's like you're taking a lot of vibrations away. And it feels still. Yeah. And more I'm just really enjoying still.
You're not
get rid of the vibrations going on and all the different frequencies that you kind of get exposed to and yeah, it's incredible what you've done here.
I really appreciate it, man. And even what you said about the expelling the vibrations, it's a fairly standard response too from people that come down from the city and like, and then they're like a friend that's come down to do the gyp rocking. Yeah. Cracking the whip, putting the pressure on. He's busy. He doesn't even have the time to be here. Gets here and just and that's the environment I wanted to create for my kids and family. And yeah, I'll keep going for them. It's as simple as that.
Man, like you've inspired me. Like just 8 hours, I want this. We've been on this property probably 8 hours. I want this. I want something like this.
Just start settling for ticking 8 boxes or two. Have a crack.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, honestly. And I'd love to, there's so much stuff we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
So much. So, for everybody that's listening, there will be an Adam Reiman part 2. There'll probably be an Adam Reiman part 3. I'd have you on, honestly, whenever you wanted to come on.
I'm keen to see the Gypsy Gang studio at some point, so I'll roll in at some point, mate.
Anytime. Yeah, honestly, anytime. There's so much stuff we could talk about.
Yeah, that's cool. And I just appreciate that you've, you've got a pretty hectic schedule. You've done Sam Hill. Yeah. You got Regan Duffy.
Well, we'll talk to Regs on the weekend.
Yeah, but just, appreciate that you holding me up there among some of West Oz's finest and had me on your podcast, mate. It's pretty cool.
Nah, and man, it's probably been one of those things where I've been too busy to really appreciate it. But as I've been sitting here immersed and soaking it in, it's really hit me of just like, fuck, we've actually got a crazy history. And one that I haven't really thought about.
It's in parallel. You built Gypsy Tales at the same time frame of, the industry as Motology Films. So we got that in common, it's cool.
Yeah, and just that Fink 2010, like that was the first time we'd hung out, and that was one of my first kind of crazy weird trips.
Just kicking in the dust with our camera gear and trying to.
I slept. I don't know if you remember. I slept. Leesky was supposed to get me a swag, and he didn't. And I don't know if you remember how fucking cold it was that year.
It's cold every year out there.
I slept in the back of an F-250 with no blankets, no pillows, and I was fucking freezing. Mate, I thought I was going to die.
That's colder. You'll be warmer out of the icebox.
Yep. And I remember we were talking about like you're compelled. Like there's been so much of the shoots and the stuff that I've done, like Alaska. We did this shoot for Red Bull in Alaska. And I was with I love him, Anthony Sensoda. He's still a Red Bull dude. He actually does some moto online, so I fucking love him. And he's done something to the gas in our motorhome. So me and Anthony are staying in this fucking motorhome in Alaska, and I slept in my snowboard gear head to toe in sleeping bag because the gas went out. We had no heat, so we're in like minus 40 something, sleeping in snowboard. snowboard boots, the whole gear, just frozen, man. And you're just compelled to go out there. And you know, I fell asleep in the snow trying to get a time lapse of the Northern Lights. Like, there's just a weird thing, and we obviously share it. And it's it's really cool. So to sit here, do the 3 hours, and just it really
awesome,
brought
mate.
a lot of, you know, really, because you just don't stop and think a lot of it.
Can I just sign off by saying, when I watch a lot of your podcasts and your different personalities and some refined people, some athletes, and this and that, and I'm like, wow, they're pretty comfortable to be saying this shit on camera. And I think it's like they don't even know they're on camera. And I just, for a few moments there, just got so lost in it that I have forgotten that I'm on camera. And I was like, oh, there's no turning back now. I've said it. Well. No, it's been great. Thanks for having us, man.
I appreciate it. I already can't wait for round 2.
Awesome.
Thank you, mate. Oh, you're the man, brother. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.